Good.
Hello, hello, hello! Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me know if y'all can see and hear
Lots
me.
of people very excited for this one, apparently. Right, I'm good. Ready to switch whenever.
I'm already live, so you can do whatever you like.
Alrighty. Hello, people. Oi, oi. Alright.
Hello, everyone. Good to see y'all. Well, just if someone in chat could just let me know if things are working, that'd be great.
And close preview. There we go. It's time for Lizardmen domination, people.
Good, good, good. Why late? Because I fucking feel like it, that's why.
Double zero? Is my audio going, twice? Don't think so.
I only hear you once from my end.
Roger that, yeah. On my side, should be good.
Alright, chat. So, I'm gonna go ahead and throw, you on. If you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself for people that are watching.
Roger that.
And y'all let me know if you can hear him okay.
Hello, everybody, and my name is Xero, mad scientist of the legit Weebs. Very recently, I got into Warhammer through Ricky's Warhammer 40k videos, and once I learned of Lizardmen's existence in Warhammer Fantasy, I kind of fell down the rabbit hole this way, because I was the dinosaur kid back in the day. And thanks to the super kind, incredible patrons that I have, I was able to play Total War Warhammer, and now we're here. Somehow. I still remember the first day I played Warhammer 3, and I can't believe that today I'm actually getting to play with you, somebody that I've listened to the Lorebeards podcast for, in regards to, like, a lot of the lore stuff. There's just some really cool details that you guys go over, and super, like, in detail. I really appreciate it.
I'll be sure to pass along the nice words to Andy. So, yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know who I am, just real quick, I'm Lore Master of Sotek. I'm considered kind of one of the premier authorities on Warhammer Fantasy lore and literature, and I do a lot with the books and the various video games and stuff. And very happy to be doing a co-op stream today with Mr. Xero, who was very heavily recommended to check out by
Glad to see you take my suggestion and reach
very
out
heavily recommended. Oh my!
Oh yeah, there was a lot of folks saying check you out, and I watched his reaction videos and was heavily entertained. So, because I fucking love that shit. Like I like, you know, those stories where people's are like, oh, I don't know if immortality's that great. Like for me, I could literally just watch people like reacting to Warhammer stuff until the sun blows up. So like, I know I could live forever. It'd be easy. Just give me a YouTube connection.
Dude.
I'm good.
I feel you so much. Just seeing somebody get into something that you're passionate about and them just being like super excited. It's just such the greatest feeling ever. That's kind of why I started like doing those reactions into lore and stuff. I just love learning new things and sharing that experience with people.
Yeah, so today, what we're going to be doing is we decided to do a team-up stream. So we're doing a co-op stream, which I've not done one of these in a hot minute, and I think this is Xero's first one.
I've never done this. Yeah. Hopefully this goes well. Oh yeah. God, I hope I don't embarrass myself.
I'm sure you'll be just fine. So basically, the goal is that we just try to take over the world, and we decided to go with Team Genocidal Skink because they actually start very close to one another.
Yes.
So I'm going to be taking up to Hinowin, and Xero's going to play good old Oxiodal, which has my favorite starting hero because it's based off of me.
Yes, I actually was informed by some comments that yes, this is a reference to you as well as the mount as well. A reference to a very good doggo, I believe.
Yes, miss her dearly every day, but she was the best. All right, so if you're ready, we can get started. So the cool thing about the way co-op campaigns work in 3 is that our turns are actually simultaneous. So we can do all of our stuff at the same time without having to wait for one another, which makes it nice and easy.
Stop being so dramatic.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I have played a little bit of Oxiodal's campaign, but I do know for a fact that he plays very differently for all the other Lizardmen. The fact that I can't just unga bunga my way to victory.
Yeah, he's definitely got that XCOM craziness going on.
Yeah. Alright. Seeing the effects of ping already. Whenever a battle happens, do we both go to the battle screen?
Yeah,
Or
so for
what?
instance, if I decide to attack kayaks here, which is going to have a Skaven army defending it, we'll have Tehewin run over here, and then it'll trigger a battle here in a minute. And we are playing across, like, the world, so if there's a little bit of lag, life goes on. Deal with it.
Yes. Apologies, my dudes. I am on the opposite side of the world from Sotek, so the fact that this is happening is already a miracle in and of itself.
Hell yeah, it is. So you should be. So now it's asking me how I want to deal with this, and if I say that I'm going to fight the battle, it'll now invite you into the screen, and it'll ask you what you want to do. So you could ask to like not pick a side or to join, and I would nominate that you should join me.
Alrighty, I will join team.
And we're gonna destroy a Skaven city.
Nice. That's actually quite a lot of Skaven. Holy.
Ah, it'll be fine. We've got the prophet of Sotek himself. We'll be great.
We have the lore master and the prophet at the same time.
Morning,
Nothing can stop us.
So, speaking of Warhammer, so how'd your little Warhammer journey start?
Yeah. So, Warhammer's been kind of something that I've been interested in. I'm a really big fan of both, like, dark fantasy and sci-fi. And Warhammer kind of has that in spades with both fantasy and 40k. But, I was warned by a member in our group by the name of Serby. Some of you guys who know us probably know who I'm talking about. That, their brother lost an incredible amount of money getting into Warhammer, so that's just kind of been something that I've been trying to avoid in case I am unable to control myself, you know? But ultimately, I reached a point where I was just way too curious, and I needed to figure it out, like, what this cool thing about that everybody was talking about in our Discord, right? So I decided to check out Bricky's videos, which, because they kind of seemed like a really good entry point for a lot of other YouTubers as well. And honestly, from there, it's just been history. I've been super into it, just learning about all the Space Marine chapters, all the lore behind that, and then when I heard of fantasy and I saw the Lizardmen, I just needed to know a lot more about fantasy, because I love dinosaurs, the Lizardmen are so cool, and now we're here, playing Warhammer 3, somehow.
Hell yeah, brother!
Yeah, it's a really cool hobby. I enjoy it a lot for what it is. There can be some not so great sides to it, like certain things that happened during the end times when I learned about that. Oh my god, I couldn't believe my ears. I wasn't even there to witness it, and I was just flabbergasted.
It was certainly a interesting time. It's the most neutral way I could put that. I mean, I would say my detest is not a no. I mean, granted, I do think there were parts of it that were good, but you know, the vast majority was trash. But we did get Age of Sigmar out of it, and I do like AOS. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab some units and put you in charge of them.
45 cheers.
So my question to you would be, how much do you want to
aid us in tracking down the fishmen?
Like, if you had to pick between, like, handling a lot of stuff, one or two very important things, or...
Well, this isn't really my battle. I can help you micro some things.
Yeah, we're gonna give you
such
something to
as
do.
maybe like a spellcaster, or, I don't know, I guess the backline artillery units I can manage. Anything that you're okay with sending to their deaths.
You know, how about, you know what, since you're playing Oxiodal, I'm going to give you a secret mission. So I'm going to give you this unit of Chameleon Skinks. And what I would like you to do with them is if you deploy... So I'm going to pull out this little pin here so I can draw, and you should see it show up on your mini-map. If you could deploy, like, way over here with them, and I'm going to deploy the rest of my army on the opposite side of the battlefield. And what you're going to do is you're going to try to sneak in to his base and just start capturing points. while I just
Okay.
slam my head into everything that shows up in front of me.
Gotcha. I guess I can just climb over the walls if there's no resistance over here, I suppose. Gotcha.
Yeah, and since the units, since they're stealth, the AI will not see them until you start capturing a point. But, so if the enemy chases you, you know, do your best to run away and survive.
Roger that.
While I blow up some stuff over here.
Okay, don't worry. I have the Joestar blood in me. I know the secret techniques.
All right. So whenever you're ready, we can hit the start battle and get into it.
Yep, ready. Let's go. There is nobody here. Okay, cool. Interesting. I love the responsiveness. We're just gonna have to deal with it. I have to predict like movements 5 seconds into the future, apparently. This will really test my limits.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all very exciting stuff. Yeah, the end times is always one of those funny things. One of these days I need to sit down and do like a full description to like walk people through everything that happens in it and like the good and the bad, but that's gonna take like I can't even imagine. That'd probably be like 10 hours of talking. At least.
Yeah, just to like rewrite the end times and figure out, you know, what can work. There's so many things in there where the characters that me as a new player, like I barely know anything about them, and I feel like they just kind of acted out of character for whatever reason. And then they did things that wouldn't really make too much sense, in my opinion, at the very least. But yeah, I guess it is what it is now at this point.
Yeah, it was, well, you know, ultimately it just boils down to it was such a rush job. But they tried to wrap up, you know, 25 years worth of lore in like a year and a half.
Yeah, that's not enough time.
Yeah, which for anyone is a pretty tall order.
Oh yeah, for sure. And especially if you have like multiple writers on that, then some things might not be as coordinated as you would want them to be.
So outside of Warhammer stuff, what's your story as far as a streamer? Like, as far as getting into the hobby or the business hobby, whatever we call it.
Well, I guess our journey as content creators started off with us like really enjoying anime. So I was like, hey, there's a bunch of anime reaction channels out there on YouTube. I'd like to do them. And so I invited my friends and we created this group. We did that for like 2 or 3 years. It didn't really like pop off all that much, but we really enjoyed our time doing it since we just really loved like talking about anime and just nerding out, I suppose. Afterwards, though, we decided to do something new, introduce a new kind of flavor to things, and we started live streaming video games, as well as like doing reaction videos to video game lore and stuff like that. And yeah, and then I discovered Warhammer one day, and now we're here currently.
Oh yeah, man. So you're part of. So the group you're a part of is called. Remind me.
The Legit Weebs. Yes.
And how many of you are there?
Currently, there are 3 official members. There are a few of our friends who join us from time to time, and most of you guys who watch the channel can see them during our like Persona 5 streams, as well as our Danganronpa streams. We do play a variety of different games here on the channel, that's for sure. And Thursdays are just kind of reserved for me and Warhammer, basically.
Very cool. That's nice that you kind of got a group of friends that you built it up with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like as a content creator, especially if you don't know what you're doing, it really helps when you have somebody there to just talk out your ideas with, or like keep you motivated, you know?
I can believe that, having been through the experience myself, yeah.
Yeah, actually, how many years have you been doing content creation, Sota?
That's a great question. that I should probably know the answer to. So I think I started. See, I think Total War Warhammer came out in I think 20. What was it, like 2017? I think that sounds right. So, and I started streaming or doing YouTube stuff right before it came out. So I've probably been doing this for about 8 years.
8 years. Holy. Yeah, I thought like the 4 years that we've been going at it was long. We have a seasoned content creator here, folks.
But most of that's YouTube. I didn't start, and I actually didn't start streaming until I think for the first 1 or 2 years. I want to say I only did videos. That might not. I'm pretty sure that's true. That might not be 100% true, but I'm like 50-50 that that's correct.
I mean, I feel like most of us start out with making videos. Immediately hopping into streaming is like so stressful, especially if you've never made any content before.
Oh yeah, I still don't know what I'm doing, so.
I think most of us don't really know what we're doing. We're just kind of testing things for the algorithm and hoping that it works out somehow.
Yeah, I have, especially when it comes to, VTubers, I have so much respect for what y'all do, because it seems like such an added level of complexity. And it's like, man, I have a hard enough time just getting my stuff to work, which is much simpler.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, especially for the more advanced setups and stuff like that. It's also I don't want to use saturated. Saturated kind of means, well, if you're basically just live streaming and playing games as a VTuber, then yeah, that's super saturated. But there are so many different kinds of VTubers as well, and so many different ways that they can make content that it's pretty insane how high the competition is.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's a very popular medium, especially after the pandemic. I mean, for the pandemic, it was.
Yeah, with the pandemic, that was just a boom. Yeah, everybody was a VTuber, and with how easily accessible it became, I can understand why.
Yeah, well, I remember that was when I discovered VTubers. I'm pretty sure was during, or either right before or right when it started.
Uh-oh. Discord, no, don't die on me.
Oh, wait. Is it
Hello?
behaving? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, man.
I want to say it was mine misbehaving, but I don't know.
Oh, no. It's probably also my end. Discord on my end sometimes acts up. It's something to do with the server that connects me to basically everybody else on the western side.
I get you.
But alright, what were you saying about the pandemic and
that's I think that's when I started watching VTubers. Was that I was either right when the pandemic started or right before it. I think it was around when Project Melody started, because I think she was one of the first VTubers I learned about. Because she really burst onto the scene, to say the least.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Oh, 1 second. Let me adjust settings.
Guts of Rivia, if Dogs of War become a thing, how likely do you think Morgan and the Grudgebringers will leave?
I feel like during the 2020 was definitely when VTubers kind of came over to the western side of things, and people just became a lot more, I guess, used to them, I suppose. Because before then, it was primarily over in Japan as kind of like this idol culture thing. I don't remember exactly when I got into it, but I always thought that it was cool, and, you know, I wanted to try my hand at it someday. Despite being a man.
The infamous male VTubers? What?
Oh my god!
Those are a thing?
They're like a rare breed! Yeah. It's certainly something to be a male VTuber, and having to kind of break into a medium where some of the most popular streamers are basically all female. It's certainly been a journey and a learning process.
Yeah, it does seem it's opened up a good bit in like the last couple of years, where there's seeming to be more variety, so to speak.
Yeah, I think initially everybody had kind of just like started copying whatever the idols were doing over in Japan, and that's why it started to feel a little samey. But then people figured out, you know, VTuber basically just means that you're a content creator that uses a virtual avatar. That doesn't mean that you have to do idol stuff. So now things have kind of just opened up a lot, and
Big time.
we're seeing a lot more creative people in the industry.
The game's slow. Yeah, well, so I'm playing. So he's over on the other side of the world. So it's
Hey,
you know.
there goes Discord again.
Oh no, you're good. I am using push to talk. So if I get really quiet for a second, it's probably because I'm like yelling at someone in chat for some reason.
Roger that. Yeah, I have push to mute on as well. No worries.
What was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought.
No worries, man.
Use
I mean,
Radman.
we can go into the deep dang VTuber lore, but I also do want to know
Garrett,
some
that's
lore
very
tidbits from you
interesting.
myself.
I
Just,
will
rack your brain a little bit.
I will experiment.
Maybe
with
there's
that.
something that I didn't get from some of the videos that I watched.
Oh yeah, any questions you got? I am happy to provide any info I can.
I would say that the first initial question that I would ask, and I feel like I already know the answer, is what is your favorite faction and why?
You'll never figure it out. It's an impossible secret. my most closely guarded.
Yes, it's
Dominic, that is
impossible to know,
And
really.
CA knows.
You have to watch all the Lore Beard podcasts in order to
45
maybe
cheers.
find out that 1 minute where you
X100.
mention it.
Train of thought?
Yeah,
That sounds like Chaos Dwarf nonsense.
I was kind of that classic, I think like you said yourself, I was that classic pipeline of child that was obsessed with dinosaurs. And then at some point, as I got a little older, it developed into an obsession with dragons. And then when I was 10 years old, my parents were desperately trying to find me a hobby that I would enjoy. Because I came from a sports family. So their usual go-to was like athletics or, you know, some kind of sport. And I hated sports. I hated them. I hated them so much.
Oh,
and so,
I see.
In desperation, they were like, all right, we got to find something. And they found a Games Workshop and were like, oh, maybe our son would like this. And they took me there.
Interesting.
And I'll never forget I don't remember his name or anything, but I'll never forget the pitch from the Games Workshop employee. And he was like, well, what do you really like? And I was like, oh, well, I really like dragons and stuff. He's like, oh, dragons. Well, like, we got like dragons and stuff. And he showed me the high elves. And I was like,
what?
Because, you know, they have a dragon.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like, you know, that's really cool, but I don't like the little guy on top. Like, I don't like the little elf dude. And he's like, okay. He's like, so you like dragons? Do you like dinosaurs? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you like T-Rexes? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you like a T-Rex that rides on a bigger T-Rex? And it was like, oh my god!
Yes! I think I actually literally said that too when I got into it. I feel that pipeline so much, man. We're basically the same thing. Getting into fantasy.
Yeah, I got the Krokgar pitch, and it was all over.
Docwobian 1171
Yeah, just seeing that guy with the hand of God or whatever he has, shooting laser beams out of his hands while riding a T-Rex, basically. Yeah, that's awesome. Like, why? How could you not love Lizardmen after seeing that?
I know, it was made to be. They're the best faction. And like once I got to know them, I only fell more in love with them because like I think they have the best lore too. There's so much of a fun dynamic story. I think they do. Of like it, I think in a lot of settings, when you deal with like if you look at like D&D as a side example, when you tend to find like a lizard people race, it tends to be much more about like they're more bestial, or they kind of live out in like swamps, and like they tend to be very like I don't want to use the term savage, but they tend to be very like simple lifestyles, simple cultures, and then Warhammer like comes out of left field, or they're like villainous cultures, and Warhammer comes out of left field and is like, no, they're the ultimate order faction. Like, they're the primordial race that's protecting the planet from absolute annihilation and the legions of hell. And it's like, well, damn. And like in many ways, they have like the highest technology. Like, they have the most advanced technology of any of the races. Unfortunately, they don't remember how to use a lot of it, so their use of it is quite limited. But the pieces and bits they do remember how to use are hilarious. You know, where they're shooting orbital space lasers.
Oh yeah, that's right. When I saw that thing, I literally pogged. Like, how could you not love that? It's an orbital space laser on the back of a giant dinosaur. What?
It's truly brilliant.
Yeah.
One day you'll make me a
Okay, yeah, that's
VTuber.
interesting.
Dude,
I didn't know it was like just ancient technology. Huh.
Yeah.
From my understanding, people described it to me as like the Lizardmen being basically like cyborgs. They kind of just come out of these spawning pools. They don't really like reproduce like that. They're more or less like robots meant to destroy chaos, essentially.
There's a truth to that. I would say that's in the most annoying nerd push-up glasses way possible. That's not technically correct, but I see where they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, maybe I misremembered, but that's my understanding of it.
So it's very true that the Lizardmen do come from spawning pools. They don't breed. Which, just a random fun fact of, if you were ever curious, the very first YouTube video I ever made that started my channel was called "How Do the Warhammer Races Breed?" And I regret that.
What? That was your first video?
It was.
What a subject to pick!
It wasn't like a conscious choice. So the only reason I even started a YouTube channel in the first place was Total War Warhammer 1 got announced, and I was like so excited because I was already a big Total War fan because I had played like Shogun 2 and some of the prior games. And I was this game would be perfect for Warhammer. Like, this would literally be the best case scenario. And then when they announced it, I lost my shit because like I was like, oh my god, it's happening. Because I was so excited and I wanted to like get people ready for the setting, I went on the Total War forums and I ran a thread where I'm like, hey, I know a lot about the war, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. And it ended up becoming like a really big thing. It was like one of the biggest, longest running threads that had ever been on the Total War forums in history, which I was super proud of and stuff. But it got like super out of hand because it started being an issue where like somebody would come in and ask a question, and either I was having to repeat answers, or like someone would come in and be like, oh, he answered that question, go to like the 56th page and scroll down to like the 8th post, and there's the answer. And so some people were like, well, why don't you just make YouTube videos? Because then, you know, people can just link to the video and it'll be a lot easier. And it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So but it just happened to be that the question I was answering at the time was like, oh, where do all like the Warhammer races come from? Like, how do they grow their populations? So, but when I made the video, because the whole breed meme stuff wasn't a thing back in like 2016 or whatever. Like it wasn't there yet. So the fact that my first video was called like "How Do Warhammer Races Breed" had a very different connotation then than it would now.
I see. Very humble beginnings, I must say.
Like, not that there's anything wrong with that kind of starting to a channel. It just wasn't necessarily. It wasn't the intended beginnings.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I get it. You know, you start off with some enticing subjects, and then you lead them on with your personality. Classic VTuber strategy right there. Yeah. Maybe you were the first VTuber. Who knows?
Yeah, I just have a really sophisticated, slightly overweight model.
Oh man.
It's just very high
I'm so glad. Yeah. I'm just so glad that we've kind of moved on in the VTuber community from calling like regular YouTubers flesh tubers. I feel like that was such a weird terminology.
I mean, it
evoked
is,
a
but
really
I'm not gonna lie
strange
that
image.
I'm quite fond of that term, just because of how like
Really?
it's so. There's a level of grotesqueness to it that amuses me greatly. I can't tell you why.
It depends on your perspective. Yeah.
I can't tell you why. They're just
From-
for some reason there's part of my brain
Yeah.
that's like, yes, it is how it feels.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Real people are all kind of funky looking.
100%. Actually, somebody in my chat asked, what's your favorite breed of lizards? Are lizards a
You mean
breed?
like-
Can you even call them that? Like the
Does he mean like-
Crossagors and the Sauruses or whatever?
Oh, like the subspecies? Okay,
Oh,
I wasn't sure if
subspecies.
I wasn't sure if he was asking about like real life lizards or like lizardmen lizards.
Oh yeah. It's probably related to Warhammer if I had to guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it kind of depends on the day that you ask me. Like, I kind of fall
Really?
under what is like that classic thing of I love everything. So like, it feels like I'm trying to pick between my favorite child, which you shouldn't do. Because
Oh,
that
no.
leads to like developmental problems. But
Yeah. Okay. I get that.
I think if someone held a gun to my head, I would say that skinks are probably my favorite. Just because
Really?
they're so much more dynamic. Because skink in the Lizardman culture, the 4 subspecies where you have like the Slawn, the Skinks, the Crocscores, and the Saurus. The Slawn, Crocscore, and Saurus all have very specific roles that they fulfill. Where the Slawn are kind of like the overseers and the big wizard magisters, and they are the overall, like, you know, they're the big boys in command. And your Saurus are just your warrior class, your warrior caste, and Crocsagores were meant mainly as essentially construction workers, where they hauled around like big heavy loads and built buildings and did all these really heavy manual labor tasks. But the Skinks do everything else. They're the priests, the artisans, the architects, the poets, the artists, the like the any role that makes us, the we live in a society of the Lizardmen, a society is the Skinks. And they also have the most personality of the Lizardmen, because although the Lizardmen are often described, I think for a lot of people, they tend to think of them as kind of automatons, which I think is kind of where the cyborg stuff comes from, where it's like, they're these alien, cold-blooded reptile people, so that, you know, that are unfeeling and impossible to understand, and that's that's a view that some books kind of like try to explain them as, but the truth of the matter is just that they're not human. Like, they do have emotions, they do have a lot of the things that make sentient life sentient, but they have it from a cold-blooded reptilian perspective, as opposed to a human perspective or an elf perspective. So like, compared to warm-blooded life, they're very strange and alien and foreign and scary. But if you like look at them on their own in a vacuum, they're like really complex, and they have a lot of really like fun little quirks and other little aspects to their personalities. Which I think a lot of people get mixed up, understandably, because some of the authors don't explore it or explain it very well.
I see. Yeah. Personally, I've been meaning to like try and get into some Warhammer literature, but there's just so many different starting points that you can go into. I haven't really gotten a good starting point. Do you have any recommendations for that?
I was gonna say, if you want to do, my biggest recommendation always is go check out Felix. As like, if you've never read a Warhammer book in your life and you just want to learn about the universe in general, you cannot go wrong with Go Train Felix, because it's like one of the best series ever written. Horus Heresy can eat my ass, I don't care.
Oh damn! Yo, 40k fans in shambles right now.
Oh yeah, dude, they will catch a lot of strays when I'm around. But
hot damn.
but if your goal is to read about Lizardmen, in my experience, the best series, though it's kind of that tricky thing of like, you want to start with Gotrek and Felix because the best book for Lizardmen is a book called The Temple of the Serpent, which is part of the Thanquol trilogy, Thanquol and Bone Ripper trilogy.
Oh wait, Thanquol's from the Gotrek and Felix books, right?
Yeah, that's the tricky
villain.
Part. Yeah, yes, he is. So he's the big bad villain introduced in the second book, Skaven Slayer, but he was such a fan favorite that he becomes a reoccurring villain throughout the entire series. And he's a fucking goof, but everybody loves him. And he was so popular that he ended up getting his own trilogy of books that feature him as the main character. Of him going off on his own misadventures. And one of his adventures is that he goes to Lustria and has an encounter with the Lizardmen. And it's like the whole book, and it's amazing.
I could imagine how well that went for him.
Yeah. I'll put it this way: the end part of the book is so funny because you basically have this ending scene where Thanquol's getting away on like a little dinghy boat back into the ocean after like things have just not gone well. And
yeah, of course.
And there's a Slan that is aware of him and is like about to kill him because a Slan killing Thanquol would be very easy for the Slan to do. But the Slan,
100%.
The Slan like looks into the future and is like, no, don't kill him. We need to let him go, and we need to send him back safely to the old world, because the Slan realizes that Thanquol alive does so much more damage to the Skaven than his death would cause. Because he's just that ridiculous of a character.
Oh my
like, no, he's so terrible at what he does. Send him back.
Bruh. Well, I do have to say though that the second, my second most favorite faction is definitely the Skaven, because well, as the Mad Scientist VTuber, that's kind of a given. But the Skaven are just so, how do you describe them? Chaotic. They can be scary, but they can also be like the funniest thing ever, and I just love that energy. I guess Thanquol kind of takes that energy and just takes it all away.
He is the most Skaven character in existence, bar none. Like, he is peak Skaven.
Peak Skaven, let's go.
But yeah, the Skaven, they're legitimately probably the best thing about Warhammer, because they're one of like the actual original Warhammer ideas. Because a lot of Warhammer Fantasy is just cannibalized from other settings. Shamelessly, I might add.
I mean, it's pretty clear sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, like, Warhammer Fantasy is basically if somebody, like, robbed the tombs of, like, Tolkien, Michael Moorcock, and then just, like, some other kind of generic fantasy tropes, and just shake them all together really hard in a blender. And it's like, look, original IP. But the Skaven are actually original, which is very impressive.
Oh yeah, it is. I've been mentioning that as well. Like, thinking about all the other races, like I can imagine obviously where they come from, whether like in fiction or real world. But when it comes to Skaven, there isn't really anything adjacent to them or even anywhere similar to them.
Oh yeah, no,
I know that there are probably like rat races out there, but like they're not like Skaven. They're just their own thing, really.
Oh yeah, they are. Games Workshop should be rightfully proud of them. Oh, nice, you caught that post. They don't have that stupid blockade there. Goody, goody, goody.
Yeah, I did a thing while we were doing the interview. Yes. With how much lag we're experiencing, I feel like this is definitely just gonna be like a podcast with gameplay in the background.
You know what? Whatever it works as, it works as. Though, I did see there was someone in chat that sent a cool recommendation of a way to potentially get around this for next time, but I've got to, like, figure out how it works. Because apparently there's a program some people use to get around this issue for Total War Warhammer multiplayer that I had never heard of until I saw that comment.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay,
that'll be
cool.
interesting to explore.
Yeah, I thought that this was just going to be life for me because I live where nobody else lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, especially like, unfortunately, Total War has the big issue where it doesn't have dedicated servers for the Total War Warhammer multiplayer. So like, it's just based on the connection between the two, the peer-to-peer connection, which makes it that when the connection isn't like amazing, it really struggles. Whereas like some other games that have more multiple, like a Blizzard game, for instance, is more about like they have dedicated servers, so it's both of your PCs are connecting to the server, and the server is the host, which makes it like so much easier. It's called
100%.
Radmen VPN, which apparently would make our game able to connect to a server that acts more like a LAN connection from there. So that'd be interesting. I will make sure to mess with that and make sure it's not a clever scam. Because I have been scammed before, and I will happily say, never again.
Oh no! I'm not gonna even ask what happened.
I'll say it just because like it's always good for me to watch. It was a fairly new scam at the time, though I think it's fairly well known now. But basically, someone messaged me on Twitter pretending to be a representative from like a company that wanted to do a sponsorship, which had happened before, but that wasn't super unusual at the time. And they were like, okay, so like we talked about it, we talked about rates, we talked about what they wanted specifically for the video, yada yada yada, and everything was looking pretty normal and pretty good. And then they were like, all right, so if you'll just click this form or click this link, that'll take you to the assets you're going to use for like the stream or the video or whatever. And it'll also have, and then we'll send the contract over tomorrow to get you signed and everything. And I was like, all right. And I clicked on the asset link or whatever, and nothing happened. Like I clicked on it and like it's something opened, but just nothing happened. I was like, that's weird. So I was like, I don't know if like it's just not like I was like, what the hell's wrong with this thing? And then suddenly I was like looking at a YouTube thing on another screen, and all of a sudden I was kicked out of my YouTube account. Like I couldn't access it, like my Google account and everything. I was like, oh no.
Yep. Yeah. That's a pretty classic one by now at this point. But yeah, I can understand. So many people fell for that one because I mean, you get sponsorship messages through Twitter, through your email. That's just kind of a normal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, now it has to go through email for me because the email system I use has a lot more protections built in. And the ability to like preview any links without opening them and stuff like that. There's just a lot more safeguards.
For sure, man.
But yeah, that was like a fun
around here.
week or two of getting my channel back.
Oh, just contacting YouTube support. Yeah.
It was a nightmare. They make that process as pain in the ass as possible. Game volume's a little loud. Okay, I'll turn it down the switch.
Unfortunately, it's like if you're not like the biggest channel ever and you can't like start an actual trend on Twitter, YouTube rarely kind of moves. Eventually they will.
That was the disappointing thing, is it was the whole like bitching on Twitter that got it fixed, not the reaching out to a YouTube person to get it fixed.
God damn it. Well, YouTube almost had a slight W
Nagarash,
with those.
Yes, there is. I can grab that for you here.
If I was the one telling the story, you'd call me a dope. Shut up, Kiwi! Those apologies. One of my friends in chat is trying to call me out.
Isn't it nice how supportive friends are?
Oh yeah, 100%. The more familiar you are with someone, the more supportive you become. That's for sure. Alright, so, I mean, we might as well talk about this. I've been pretty curious since I've never played Tehenuan before. A lot of people have talked about how cool he is, but what is his lore implication? From the little bit that I learned from the comment sections, it's like he kind of worships some sort of serpent god instead? Something was going on there?
Yeah, so... Ooh, man.
Oh, by the way you're saying it, this is probably gonna be a long conversation,
So
isn't it?
I'm trying to do like the condensed version in my head, but so the gimmick behind it is that like the very basic like millisecond explanation, like one sentence, is that Tehenowin is basically an aggressively violent Lizardman version of Moses.
Okay.
What I mean by that is that so the idea behind him is that before Tehenowin,
Yeah.
the Lizardmen only worshipped a group of gods they know as the Old Ones. And the Old Ones are kind of these primordial aliens that came to the Warhammer world roughly 10,000 years ago, and the Lizardmen were the first race that they created as kind of like the custodians and caretakers of the planet, and then they started creating other races. So they created like the elves, then the dwarves, then humans, then halflings, and then ogres.
Quick question. Are the old ones shared between Fantasy and 40k? Because I feel like I remember seeing a picture of the old ones. They were kind of like frog-like people.
Yeah,
kinda.
they are. The name is shared, but what they actually are is very different. So like the old ones, they're called the old ones in both settings, and they share similarities because. So the tricky thing with 40k and fantasy is that way back in the day, back in the 80s, fantasy came first. Like fantasy was the first game that got made, and then later they created Warhammer 40k, which the reason it was called Warhammer 40k is because it was the Warhammer universe 40,000 years in the future. So it was all of the fantasy races made into futuristic stuff. So they just ported everything over. So they made space elves, space lizardmen, space dwarves, space everything, right? And then over time, they kind of separated into their own things. But because of that, there are a lot of kind of holdover things where like all of the demons are in both settings. But even though you might have the exact same character, so like Scarbrand, for instance, is in both Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Fantasy. But if you actually go sit down and read their stories and their lore and everything, the 40k Scarbrand is a notably different character than the fantasy Scarbrand.
Really?
Yeah, there are similarities. Like probably the most extreme example that's easy to explain is like Kugoth Plaguefather, the big Nurgle character. In 40k, he's a very dour, vaguely depressed, sour puss of a character. Whereas in fantasy, Kugoth Plaguefather is very jolly and excited and full of energy, and he's very like gregarious and like just having a great time.
My man's bipolar?
Yeah, so
or probably just a completely
like
different
when
character.
He has to go to 40k, he apparently just bums out. But which, you know,
hey, I'd be bummed out too if I spawned into 40k.
Yeah, so the old ones are another example where in 40k the old ones are basically just the Slaawn. Like they're just the Slaawn. Whereas in fantasy they're a much more complex set of entities who their appearance seems pretty wildly different for like each old one, which seems to imply that they could either choose what form they took or they would like inhabit different forms, because the way the Lizardmen talk about them in some of their descriptions, some of them are described as like these weird, like almost animal-human hybrids, or furries, as we might call them in the modern day.
Of course.
Whereas others are like really weird, hard to grasp concepts of like scintillating light or like strange movements of air or fog, and they represent these like really nebulous concepts. Exactly what part of that is like their physical appearance versus just representations of them, who could say?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because they did literally create all the races, so obviously they could like create themselves and shape themselves a bit.
Yeah, well, they're always described as they walk the line between. They were so advanced that to them the difference between science and magic was non-existent. To them, it was the same thing.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, that's a good description.
Nolan, is the Great
Huh.
Kurgan a reference to Ragnar
Ancient
Lothbrok? I don't know who that
aliens?
is, but I'm
I
gonna
suppose.
say possibly, maybe.
All right, but I'm pretty sure. I think the Slan were actually created in the image of the old ones, or maybe that's what they believe. Is that a thing?
That could be an argument to be made. Yeah, I would argue against it that we have some descriptions in fantasy about some of the old ones appearing physically in several scenarios, most notably in like certain battles. So like the really fancy magic spear that Krokar wields is known as the revered spear of Tlunksha, because it is one of the spears of one of the old ones, the old one Tlunksha, who is described as a powerful entity that rode across battlefields in a flying silver chariot that burned the air behind him, and he wielded that spear to murder people.
Of course.
And if he's a
sounds like
Slan,
such an epic description.
yeah, and it's like that's not really something a Slan could do, because Slans don't really, they're these big bloated toad-like creatures.
Yeah.
So I would say that the evidence does not support that claim. And I think only like one or two of the Slan or old ones could be potentially described as toad-like.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh. Me. Try and do this. Probably put on you guys.
But yeah, anyway, Tehenuin's whole gig is that he comes from a city that gets destroyed by the Skaven when the Skaven first emerge in Lustria, when they finally make the journey over there and they start causing problems. And he emerges from the ruins of a city that Clan Pestilence destroys with a horrible disease. And he was the first, or at least the most famous, of a new breed of skink that had these strange red crests, which is why he's called a red-crested skink. And the skinks that are dedicated to Sotek are known as red-crested skinks. And the whole thing with him is that he discovered a sacred plaque, which is that big stone thing that little tablet he carries with him. And upon it is the prophecy of Sotek, which is a prophecy that talks about how if enough Skaven are brutally slaughtered in battle and ritual sacrifices, that this will empower a new god, a serpent god, by the name of Sotek, who is the great serpent, the devourer of chaos, and that should the Lizardmen empower him enough, he will be birthed into the world, and he will devour the rat spawn until he tracks down their god, the Great Horned Rat, and he will devour the Great Horned Rat and digest him for 1,000 years. So Tehenuin's whole thing is he goes on a literal genocidal rampage against the Skaven over a 100-year war and kills millions of them. And according to myth, though there's likely a lot of truth to it, he does successfully bring Sotek into reality, which is fucking bonkers.
Really?
Yeah, there's if you're doing a Lustria campaign, there's a volcano. It's the little islands on the eastern side of it. There's a big volcano, and that volcano is called the Fuming Serpent, or the Fuming Serpent. And the reason it's called that is because when Sotek came into reality, he was birthed out of that volcano. So according to some skinks that were there, this giant, colossal snake burst out of the lava from the volcano and started pursuing the Skaven who were fleeing across the ocean to get away.
Oh, that's so cool. I see. So that's his whole deal, and that's why there's the genocidal memes. Okay,
yeah. And because he carries that fucking tablet with him everywhere he goes, it makes a lot of people I think of I don't know if you've seen the old 10 Commandments movie. That's like 10
I've
hours
seen
long.
the meme.
It's like it's a great film, I'm not gonna lie, but it's so long. So a lot of people like to meme on that, especially because there's the whole part at the end where like Moses, like there's a scene in that movie. My memory could be getting it wrong, but I swear to God, there's a part at the end when he comes back down from the mountain with like the 10 Commandments, and he like sees all the people that he left on the like worshiping like a golden bull, and they're falling into heresy and stuff, and he just like chucks the 10 Commandments at them. Like, he throws it at them. And
What?
it like hits the ground and causes the ground to like split open, and like a bunch of people fall to their deaths and shit. And you're just like, what is happening? It is the wildest
That
part of that
sounds
fucking
epic.
movie.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, like it's like the old live action one from like the 50s or something. I don't remember. It's an old movie. It's very well made, but it's fucking it's just a wild film.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the right one. I might have to search it up after the stream. But yeah, awesome. Okay, so that's the Hennowin's whole thing. I'm sorry, chat. Thank you so much for correcting me, everybody.
No, tell him to fuck
All right.
off. I pronounce stuff wrong all the time.
Oh, actually, earlier in chat, somebody was like, "Hey, ask Sotek, how do you pronounce the name of the new Nurgle Lord? Tamarkan or Tamakan?"
It's
Something like that.
It's Tamarkan, but because my
Tamarkan?
brain is stupid, I like to say Tarmakan, which is not correct,
Oh,
but I don't care.
Ah, I get
Because
you. Hey,
once I've settled into
sometimes
saying
you know, in the moment, it just goes out, and you just gotta live with it, accept it, and roll with it.
Oh, people used
Alright.
to get pissed at me for years because I used to always pronounce Morathi's name as Morathi, and people hated that. It would make them so mad. So, of course, once people
I
start getting
never
mad
heard
about
somebody call it like that.
it, once
Yeah.
people start getting mad about it, then I start doing it on purpose. But,
Oh, well, there you go. It becomes a living meme. The content just makes itself. All right.
you need
Well,
to click fight battle for it to go to the next step.
Fight battle. Okay,
And
there
then
we go.
I'm able to just do 20.
Nice.
Jaw Thirster? Oh, man, I should call her.
I definitely had to play Morathi's campaign at some point. As a certified VTuber of culture. I need to
Yeah.
test out the waters a little bit.
Hey, her campaign is goated. I'm hoping she'll get some new goodies with the inevitable Slaanesh DLC because she has access to several Slaanesh units.
Well, yeah, they do go hand in hand. Although, when I kind of talked about it, I think I was reacting to the Warhammer cinematics, and I had assumed that, you know, they worship Slaanesh. Apparently not. There's, like, many different gods they worship. There are, like, their own, like, dark elf gods that they worship.
Yeah, so
Not really too sure about the lore on that part.
The elves are kind of based on, like, you can kind of think of it as like a Roman god type pantheon. So it's like a fairly large pantheon of like 20-ish gods. But they're split into 3 groups where you have the Kadai, which are the heavenly gods. So they're the gods that are considered like the more noble, good aspects. So, and those are who the high elves like to think are like the big important ones. And then you have the Sithari, where the Sithari are the underworld gods, and they're not necessarily evil. They're just more destructive, or more nasty. So, like Cain, the Lord of Murder,
Nagashi's
is
best
one of
god.
those, or Authority, the goddess of pleasure, or Hekardi, the goddess of like dark magic, but more of like sorcery and darker magics. Or Anath Rayma, the savage huntress. And then you have a couple of neutralish gods who, and when the dark elves primarily exalt the underworld gods because they tend to be more powerful in a more direct sense, so to speak. You know. Oh, nice. I got the Chloe on. Life is good.
Yeah. We could talk a little bit about strategy here, I suppose. I can have you manage the Chameleon Stalkers.
Oh, sure.
Boop, as well as the Spellcasters, and yeah, that should be good. Unless if you want more units.
Well, the only one I have right now is the Skink Oracle. Oh, there we go. Awesome.
Alright, there we go. Yeah.
All
Just
right,
had to figure out the controls a little bit here. Right, cool.
I love the Troglodon so much. Even though I will always be a little annoyed at CA because the Troglodon isn't as pale as it should be. Like, it's literally known as the Pale Death. That's its, like, nickname. But it's like purple and
but
green.
then it's not
like,
pale.
It's supposed to be white, damn it! It's supposed to be pale. That's all right. We can't have
I
everything.
feel like people also had a similar conversation when it came to the what was it, the coatl or something like that?
Oh,
I
don't
forget
even
how you
get me
pronounce
started.
it.
Don't even get.
But
No,
it's
no, that's
supposed to
correct.
look like a flying serpent.
Yeah.
But it looks like a bird.
It drives me insane. Oh, I hate that. I commissioned a mod to fix it. So I have a very, very nice mod
really? Hot
that makes
damn.
it what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, the coatl. Oh god, that makes me so mad. There's kind of like, and it's turned into a bigger meme now because there's the whole joke that the coatl is not supposed to have a beak, but it does. But then the Zongors don't have beaks when they should, because Games Workshop came down and said we weren't allowed to have beaks on them because that would make them the AOS version and not the fantasy version, which is dumb.
Oh, I see.
So it became Beakgate. And I'm still I'm still salty about it. all this time later.
I mean, I've always wondered why they didn't just like adapt it like according to the lore.
So
Was there some sort of creative decision there?
The coatl thing was an earnest mistake, even though I think a very dumb one. But basically, what happened is that for the coatl's design, Creative Assembly kind of looked around, and they when they make models, they will usually try to find something to base it on. Their in-game models, so they'll do a little research into maybe the coatl never had an official model is an important thing. Like, it never had an official tabletop model. However, there was a kit bash, which a kit bash, if you're not familiar with the term, is like taking a bunch of pieces of different models and kind of like just taking little bits and pieces from a bunch of models and bashing them together. To make something new. So so there was a White Dwarf article, which White Dwarf is a magazine run by Games Workshop and has been around for like 1,000 years at this point, it feels like. Where one of the GW folks made a model for a coatl using kit bashes. And so he made a version, and he painted it and everything. And the version that he made used the head of the old Chaos Dragon model. And the Chaos Dragon, and the dragons back then, the way they were designed, the tabletop minis, the dragons back then had very, like, sharp mouths. So kind of as if they had a beak. They weren't beaks, but they kind of looked like beaks because of the way the mini was designed. And so when he kit bashed his coatl together, the way he painted it, he kind of painted the rim of the mouth yellow, so it sort of looked like a beak. And the quality of the picture wasn't very good that they put in the magazine, because it very heavily because they did this goofy thing where they made it like an action shot to try and make it look like the model was flying. So they like blurred the fuck out of the surrounding around the model, which made it kind of hard to see the details. So somehow a Creative Assembly employee who was on the art team looked at that picture and went, "Oh, it's a beak," and just ran with it. Despite the fact that every piece of artwork for for coatls from like the army books over the years and just like all the different art interpretations, none of them have beaks. They all have serpent mouths, which they're supposed to be, because the coatl is a direct ripoff of Quetzalcoatl, the actual like, deity from our world, or mythological figure, I guess I should say more accurately, who of course is a feathered serpent. So it's a serpent with bird wings, and they fumbled the fucking bag.
Damn, dude.
And I will give them crap about it until the day I die.
I guess that's kind of unfortunate, but also, silly mistake that I feel like definitely could have been avoided.
Is it a huge deal? No. But am I going to be butthurt about it? Yes.
Hey, we have the right to be butthurt about anything. We're the consumer, after all.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an important question for you. based on what you've learned so far, if you had
Mm-hmm.
to sell your soul to one of the 4 chaos powers, who are you going with?
Ah, here it is. I actually
I feel like judging you for
yeah, oh god. Oh no. Okay. A flashback is occurring. I am recalling a memory of one comment where somebody said, "Oh boy, if Sotek knows about which chaos god you would choose, you'd get shit for it."
That's ominous, one might say.
Very, very. Okay, so I did actually react to Pancreas's video about the subject, and I was thinking about it. I even asked everybody in the community as well. But if I'm being honest, I probably go with Korn.
Interesting choice. Why corn?
Well, I choose Korn because if it's a world full of war, I probably want to be on the side that goes to war and fights in the war. I'm not really all about, the Nurgle. I mean, Papa Nurgle loves all of us, for sure. But I'm not about the stinky, plague-ridden life. And Zinj is kind of weird. I don't know what he's gonna do to me. He seems like a devious type. And as somebody who's incredibly horrible at lying, I don't think I'd fit in very well.
That's probably fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And then Slanesh. People thought that I would have picked Slanesh because of how cultured I can be sometimes. But I'm not really into the whole, BDSM stuff. To be honest, that's not really my thing. I'm kind of for all intents and purposes, I'm pretty normal when it comes to my taste. Just 10 older ladies. Yeah, it's pretty normal, right? Yeah,
Sure.
So yeah, I don't think Slanesh was sure. I don't think Slanesh was kind of my thing. So yeah, considering those 4 options, I'd probably have to go with Korn.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. All right. Yep. Feel free to roast me. Also, let me know what you would have picked.
Corn makes for a very good, how do I say this? I think corn makes for a very safe choice. Granted,
sure.
You're getting eternally damned to a life of battle and bloodshed without pause. But I don't know. I see safety in that, which is understandable. I'll say,
yeah. I mean,
complete...
if everybody's going to war, you might as well, right?
my thing is always that I'm a complete bitch, right? I don't like pain. I don't like being sick. I don't like feeling bad. Yeah. So I always choose Grandfather Nurgle. And the reason is because what Nurgle does is that he strips all of that away from you. He's the god of despair in that you embrace despair and just become part of it. So you don't, you may look horrible. You may be a grotesque, diseased, cancerous walking tumor, but you're not suffering. Which for me, it's I could potentially get eternal life, and even though I'm gonna look hideous, but I won't be in any pain, and I don't have to suffer the ill effects of any disease. Sign me up. Sign me up. Being I'm okay being eternally sick as long as I don't have to suffer the ill effects of being sick. Because being sick fucking sucks.
Oh, bro, I completely understand that. I feel that so much. I'm the kind of person who very rarely ever gets sick, but when I do, I am bedridden for a week. I am just dead.
Yeah, the classic.
Oh man,
what do people call it to make fun of? Man flu. Yeah, the man flu.
The man flu? I've never heard of that terminology before. What is that?
So it's a concept over here where it's usually used by women to make fun of men, even though they don't. What the meme is about it is that when big strong men get sick and they just get a little something, they get extremely overdramatic and it's like they're dying. whenever they get sick.
Uh,
But that's bullshit, because what it actually is that when you have someone who doesn't get sick very often, like, you know, you have like an active guy who very rarely gets sick, when he does get sick, it means something big got him. Something got through his immune system, got through his defenses, and if he's actually sick and it's like affecting him to the point where he's like stopping and slowing down, then he's super fucking sick. But because it's like the only time that he sees sick, everyone's like, "Oh, look at the big baby, he gets sick," and he's like, "Duh, duh, duh." And it's like, well, yeah, because he never gets sick. Of course, it's gonna be like destroying him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it very rarely happens, but when it does happen, it's probably because it's actually super serious. Most of the time, you just tough it out and just go about your day, but that usually just makes it worse. So,
yeah. Whereas, like, you have like some people out there who get sick all the time, but the sicknesses they get are kind of you know, like they're fairly minor, and they're able to just kind of power through it and keep going, doing whatever they're doing, even though they shouldn't. You know, when you get sick, you should stop and get better.
For sure.
But, you know, some people are just, that's like one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people are like sick and they still like go to work or go to school or whatever. And it's like, now you're gonna make me sick, you piece of garbage.
Oh yeah, 100%. As somebody who gets sick because of those people who come to school whenever they're sick, I hate that as well. Anyways,
and you don't have to fight every battle. If you feel like really safe auto-resolving, feel free to do that.
Roger that.
That is your
call. I'll do this. Auto-resolve is sometimes very favorable for the player sometimes. I'll take that whenever.
I will say, I think for the way our society is nowadays, I think a lot more people would fall to Slaanesh than they think. Because Slaanesh, a lot of people get caught up in like the meme version of him, which is obviously sex, drugs, rock and roll. But what Slaanesh actually is just the god of excess, doing anything in excess. Whether it's, you know, obviously the initial thing that everybody thinks of is like, oh, sex and that stuff. But it's like, no, but if you're someone that's a perfectionist, or you like music or art, or really any of the trappings of civilization, or like, if you're like neurotic about trying to make things as good as they possibly can be, Slaanesh is gonna get you.
Actually, yeah, that... Considering all that, and how society kind of views, society, then yeah, people would fall to that because, well, we just never have enough, don't we?
So I will say, if you've never played a Tehillim campaign, you should give it a go at some point, because so he has a unique mechanic where he has a sacrifices to Sotek system, where you get captives from battles and you ritually sacrifice them to give yourself buffs and abilities. So like, I'm gonna murder 150 Skaven here to give myself the ability to summon. This will give me the ability to summon jungle swarms in battles. And I'm gonna do this other one.
Wait, jungle swarms? What are those? You can just summon units in battle?
So it's an ability where I drop an AoE, and if you look closely at the ground, you'll see like a bunch of snakes pouring out of it, and it just does a shit ton of damage to enemy units standing over it.
Oh!
And just keeps hitting them with poison over and over and over and over. It's delicious. And then I'm gonna do another sacrifice to give all units in all of my armies plus 10 armor for 10 turns.
Nice.
But yeah, if you do these sacrifices to Sotek, eventually, if you get the maximum one, which you have to jump through a couple hoops to get it, but once you get the maximum tier 1, it gives you an ability where you summon Sotek himself onto the battlefield as like a as a big attack. So this giant snake god comes bursting out of the ground and goes in a straight line, and he just kills every single fucking thing in front of him.
Yo, that's so cool. Yeah,
it's goated. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty goated.
I gotta try that, man. Yeah, definitely someday. I mean, as the Lizardmen fan, I gotta play all the factions eventually. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I only played Gorok, Krokgar, and Oxyotl. A little bit of Nakai offline as well, but
they're all very good.
Yeah, no, not Tehillim. And Mazda Mundi I haven't tried. Mazda Mundi I feel like is kind of vanilla though.
He is. He could definitely use some more spice. Like he's insanely strong. Once he gets his Stegodon mount, he gets up on Zlak. He curb stomps everything, to just a ridiculous degree. But he is kind of basic bitch right now. Like he's strong. He's just not super exciting. Like Krokar is Krokar is kind of basic too, but at least he has the super fun thing of that he makes all of your Saurus characters absolute demigods, which is pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, Krokar is just fun to go rampaging all across Cathay with, or honestly, just jumping all the way back to Lustria and rampaging over here. Man just bonks things really hard and it works out. I like him a lot.
Awesome
can you ask Sotek about Total War Battles, Warhammer app by NetEase Games, and what its development, like cool characters like Goblin Pirates?
Replayability you can have by giving each LL something unique and cool.
Is there anything that you
Sorry,
know about this?
I had TTS yelling in my ear. What was the question?
Roger that. Okay, so yeah, just my chat asking, can you ask Sotek about Total War Battles, Warhammer app by NetEase Games, and what to its development, like cool characters, Goblin Pirates, etc. Something like that? I don't know anything about this.
That I am not sure what they're asking about specifically.
Okay, gotcha. I wasn't sure. I'd assume that you probably do it since Chow was asking, but yeah, no worries.
Like, if they're, yeah, I'm not 100% sure I'm picking up what they're putting down.
Roger that. Yeah, no worries. Okay, let's I forgot. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, the Warhammer
do it next
app.
turn. Yeah, app.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Roger that.
Yeah, I have a great relationship with Creative Assembly, and I know a lot of the stuff that they do and they get up to. If you're talking about like the mobile app version of Total War Warhammer, I do not know a goddamn thing about that. That is complete.
Wait, there's going to be a mobile app?
Oh no, there was one. I think it's gone now, or it got canceled, but there was one for a little while.
Oh, interesting.
That being said, are there Goblin Pirates in Warhammer Fantasy? Yes, 100%. Greenskin fleets are a very regular thing. And they are just as goofy and ridiculous as you would expect them to be.
I see.
If you're gonna be a proper greenskin orc or goblin pirate, you gotta have a proper boss act.
I mean, the greenskins seem quite fit for the role. I can imagine them already. Actually, didn't we get pirates. Slayer pirates too?
Yeah,
like,
the
in
newest
Thrones
DLC.
of Decay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's technically a pirate faction. If you play Arnes Assault Spite with the Vampire Coast, she has a lot of pirate units. Though a lot of people would like her to get a redesign because she's in kind of a weird spot at the moment. Because like her gimmick is that she has living units despite being in an undead roster, but she doesn't have access to as many living units as everybody would like.
What the? Teeny Weeny and Tic Tac Toe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have
Chat wishes to know the lore.
So you have Tic Tac Toe, who is a legendary lord. That's the Pterodon character. Which Tic Tac Toe is the Sky Warden of Hexwaddle. So the city that Mazda Mundi's from.
Okay.
He is their big guy in charge of all of their Pterodons and their scouts and protecting the city from various threats. And he's very good at his job. Like there's a super famous siege battle or war, more accurately, that's described in detail in the Lizardmen 7th edition army book called which is the Siege of Hexwaddle, which happened like very late in the timeline, like right before the end times, where Mazda Mundi was gone. He had left the city to go do some stuff, and all of the Slawn in the city, many of them were took a while to wake up. So he found out that there was a giant Chaos Horde that was a mix of Warriors of Chaos, Chaos Dwarfs, Beastmen, and Dark Elves. Had managed, because he had was led by this really nasty champion of Slaanesh who was a contender to be ever chosen, named Vashnar the Tormentor. And Vashnar the Tormentor's whole goal was to come down to Lestria and kill a Slawn so he could offer its heart up to Slaanesh to prove himself a big badass. And Tic-Tac-Toe finds out about, or discovers his army as it's heading towards Hexawaddle, and Tic-Tac-Toe holds them off for 2 months.
Months? What?
Yeah. Using, he harasses the shit out of them as they're on their way to the city, leading a bunch of ambush attacks and, dropping boulders on people and doing all this stuff. And then when the siege actually begins, he is heading up the siege and leading just lots and lots of aerial attacks against the force of Vashnar. Because Vashnar, this is the first time the Lizardmen had ever seen the Hell Cannons, which are the really nasty Chaos Dwarf engines of death that the Chaos Dwarfs sold to them. And the Lizardmen had never seen those before, and obviously they were a problem. So Tic-Tac-Toe ends up doing a whole thing where he leads a giant army of pterodons that blots out the sun. There's so many of them. And they fly over all the Hell Cannons and just drop a bunch of boulders and crush all of them.
Hell yeah, it's
Which
insane.
is particularly impressive when you know that Vashnar the Tormentor rides on a big fucking Chaos Dragon. So Tic-Tac-Toe was having to avoid him the entire time.
Oh.
But there's also the really hilarious gimmick that there was a White Dwarf article that got published that had a battle report showing off new minis, and one of the new minis was Tic-Tac-Toe. So they were showing off. He has a really pretty mini that's actually held up really well throughout the years. But they did a showcase battle of Lizardmen versus the Demons of Chaos, and the Demons of Chaos were led by none other than Be'lakor, Dark Master, the Shadow Lord, the first Demon Prince, the big badass of Chaos.
Yeah, Be'lakor.
And
gotcha.
so it's important to note, Be'lakor is considered one of the biggest, baddest villains of Warhammer as a setting. Even in 40k, he's a ridiculously huge big bad. Because he's the first Demon Prince, big deal, big deal, whatever. So, however, in this article, which they didn't just treat as a battle report, they also treated it like it was a lore battle. So they wrote a story to go along with it. The way Be'lakor fucking dies is that Tic-Tac-Toe deploys from the sideline.
Oh no!
So it's just this little skate on a pterodactyl with a unit of pterodon riders, and they just fly over Be'lakor and use the drop rocks ability. So they just drop a bunch of boulders on Be'lakor and kill him.
Oh, Be'lakor, no!
Which, if you're playing that match, that's about 200, 200 to 300 points worth of pterodons with Tic-Tac-Toe, combined, just murdered a 600 point model. It's just
holy hell, dude!
And
that's
it's
insane.
turned into this super famous meme. After this battle, I'll send you a picture of it. It's turned into a really funny meme because the way the author described it was just super fucking goofy. and as far as most of the fans are concerned, many people consider it a canonical event as opposed to just a White Dwarf article, because Be'lakor is just constantly eating L's. That's what he does.
Oh, that's awful for Be'lakor, but I guess great for the memes.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then
man.
Teeny Huini doesn't exist anymore, because Teeny Huini was the original version of Tehenuin. Because when the Lizardmen were initially created, they all had really goofy names. So Krokgar was just called Croc, because that very inventive.
Yeah, he's a croc. Yeah.
Lord Croak was named at this time, which is why he has such a goofy ass name, despite being one of the most important and powerful characters in the setting. Because he's a frog and he's dead, so he croaked. Ugh.
He croaked. Yep.
Yeah. But then you had Teeny Huini, who in 6th edition got renamed into Tehenuin and was made into a much more serious character. But But some of the characters have maintained goofy names like Tic-Tac-Toe. Even it's not spelled like you think it is. It's spelled different than you think, but obviously he is a very goofy name.
Yeah.
Though hilariously, the genuinely most terrifying war crime, like war criminal, among the Lizardmen, whose exists in the lore, is a minor character that you actually can get in Total War if you play a Tic-Tac-Toe campaign. He's a starting hero that you get. His name is Itsy Bitsy.
Oh my god.
And Itsy Bitsy, also known as the Piranha Warrior, is a skink chief whose whole gimmick in the lore is that he ambushes people and either like slits their throat while they're sleeping or like surprises them with poisonous darts and kills them. But his preferred tactic is to capture people and like tie them up and then drag and throw them into the piranha swamps where they're eaten alive by piranhas.
Oh my god.
And he has a killing ground that's full of all the people that he kills because his preferred method is to take anyone he kills and make sure he takes them to the piranha swamp so that all of the evidence is left as bones at the bottom of the swamp. Like, he's fucking terrifying, and he has the goofiest fucking name.
This is what happens when you let the media name serial killers.
Oh yeah, I genuinely love Itsy Bitsy. Like, most of the characters, I wish they had more serious names, but Itsy Bitsy is one of my favorite. Of like, oh, that's kind of a cute name, and then you realize what he is, and it's like, oh my god.
The horror. Yeah. Like, what?
Oh, he's just Geneva Conventions the skink, but yeah.
Can't imagine. Oh, also, apologies. I'm getting in some super chats and memberships wanting me to ask you some things if you're fine with answering them.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Luring Lion wants to know about the Lizardmen Empire level reworks.
So... Okay, I think I know what he's asking.
Okay.
Would the do I think the Lizardmen are going to get reworks like the Empire did for the most recent DLC? I think that is very, very likely. I think the Lizardmen have one good DLC still in them, and CA knows that I know where they live.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so they better.
Argument, yep.
But I have chatted with some of the devs who have told me for a fact that they're working on making the Lizardman mechanics better. Now, I don't know if that would be like, that's going to come in a DLC, or if that's just going to be like part of a patch update. But like, I personally know a dev who's been messing around with like the commandment system and trying to make like the geomantic web more exciting.
Oh yeah, the geomantic web, like, it's a cool idea, but like I don't really care about it because it doesn't really do too much for me. So it kind of falls under the unfortunate thing that a lot of the Lizardmen mechanics suffer from, which is that it's a powerful mechanic, but it's boring. In that, like, oh, hey, the fact that it makes, like, your commandments, like, if you get it fully upgraded, it makes your commandments, like, 5 times more powerful. Okay, like, that's certainly not bad. But, like, you know, I've been arguing for a long time that it should have an interactive system to it, where, like, oh, hey, if you manage to make the geomantic web a certain level in an area, you get access to, like, unique spells and, like, army abilities. So, like, you're able to unleash, like, super spells. So that's something that's been kind of kicking around in the background for a while. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm hoping it'll happen at some point. I see. All right. And next question is from Arthur's Emoto Kitten Boy Wife.
That's a name?
He wants to know... Yeah, Arthur's been a regular on the channel for several years now.
You know what?
Shout out to Arthur.
Good for you, Arthur. Good for you.
Yeah. He wants me to ask you about Grimgor Ironhide and why Archaon can't pee normal anymore. What is this?
So
what is this deep deck lore?
That's a meme of
okay.
There was the end times was not the first time the Warhammer world faced a apocalypse. There was an apocalypse before that, known as the Storm of Chaos. And the Storm of Chaos was
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was a summer event. So back in the day, they don't do this anymore, which is a shame. But back in the day, Games Workshop used to do summer campaigns. So like when summer would come around, so like May to August or May to September, they would always do a summer campaign that would be like some kind of big narrative event that they would publish, like a little book that would cost you like $20 or whatever. And it would introduce like a bunch of lore and new units and models, and you would get to play with all your buddies. And they would have like on their website a way that you could interact with the system to like report your victories or report like your battles and all this stuff. So it allowed you to participate in like a big campaign they were doing, and it was a lot of fun. And one of these was the
21 months. My bones are now dust.
Thank you for the 21 months. Sorry, you're old. One of these was the Storm of Chaos. And the Storm of Chaos was that it was the original version of the End Times, where Archaon had risen up in the north at long last and was leading a giant invasion down into the Empire, and simultaneously there were fights happening all over the world. So like the Marathi and the Cult of Pleasure were invading Lustria, and the Ogre Kingdoms were doing shenanigans out in the east, and the Tomb Kings were invading the Badlands to conquer back a bunch of territory, and yada 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 yada. But there was a problem, which is that the whole point of the campaign was supposed to be that the world was going to change because chaos was going to come in and kick everybody's ass, and it was going to be this crazy whole thing. But what ended up happening instead is that via all the reports that everyone was submitting about their games, chaos got its ass absolutely just slapped into oblivion. Like, chaos got pile drived by everybody. It was embarrassing. So chaos was getting the shit kicked out of it, and it led to this awkward moment of Games Workshop being like, ooh, okay, we built up this whole big narrative about how chaos is supposed to be like this horrible threat, and literally everyone is just like, it's just that JoJo meme of like they're just kicking the crap out of that dude on the ground, right? They're just
for part 5.
And so they were releasing like segments of the story on the website that was like these big lore write-ups about what was happening. And so what ends up happening in the end is they kind of had to like bullshit the ending because like chaos was losing. So they're like, oh crap, we gotta like try and wrap this up. So what ends up happening is that Archaon comes down to Middenheim, and there's this really big epic battle, and he fights Vultan, which Vultan is the reincarnation of Sigmar. And he's this really powerful, young to middle-aged man, depending on which source you look at, who gets Karl Franz gives him Golmaraz, he gives him the hammer, and is like, go fight, go do a good job. And so he runs out and he does all this epic fighting, and him and Archaon get in a big duel. They have this big epic fight, and Archaon murders him, like just absolutely destroys him.
Ripped it.
But as Archaon is about to land the killing blow, now granted, Archaon's pretty exhausted at this point. Like, he not only had to fight Vultan, but he had to fight like a bunch of other characters that were trying to help Vultan. But Archaon has finally won, and he's about to strike the killing blow, and he hears a noise behind him. And he hears somebody just like yelling, just going, wah! And he turns around to see Grimgor Ironhide just running up on him. And
oh god,
the actual version of the story is that Grimgor, Archaon and Grimgor start fighting, and Archaon tries to kill Grimgor by like unleashing the full power of his sword, but Grimgor deflects his attack, and then he headbutts Archaon so hard that like Archaon's helmet like dents inwards, and he just goes down. Like,
my god!
And Grimgor just beats the crap out of him. And Grimgor
he's
basically
the best,
and Grimgor literally looks around and goes, "Oh, I'm the best!" Nobody beats Grimgor, and then he just leaves. Like Grimgor just walks off. And Archaon teleports to safety. Like he teleports back to the realm of chaos. And it was such a goofy, stupid way for Archaon to lose that Grimgor literally just like runs up on him, literally out of nowhere, and just trashes him like a WWE like super event that a lot of memes were made about it, and the most famous meme by far was on a website called 1D4chan, which 1D4chan has a lot of like Warhammer stuff and lore and things, but it's like everything they talk about is like memeified. And so in their memeified version of the event, the way they report it is that instead of it being, oh, Grimgor came up and fought Archaon and headbutted him, instead they end up saying, no, what actually happened is that Grimgor runs up behind Archaon and kicks him so hard in the nuts that the Everchosen is just instantly defeated.
Okay, so that's where the meme came from.
But the problem ended up being that because that version stuck around and was easily accessible to fans and new fans coming into the hobby, whereas the Storm of Chaos website got taken down by GW because they retconned the Storm of Chaos out of existence, and we're like, no, it didn't happen. And they reset the timeline back to before the Storm of Chaos. It led to this incident where the vast majority of fans and people coming into the hobby only had the meme version to read. So they were like, oh, that's what happened.
No.
Which is
oh my god,
goofy as shit, but you know, to be honest, with how absolutely stupid the end times was, it's only fitting.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, is it really all that better or all that worse from what actually happened in Storms of Chaos? So, yeah, that's great. Learning a lot, actually, about the the deep, dank meme lore, too, here. Let's see. Alright. Yet another question coming in.
Oh, I gotta look up that tic-tac-toe meme.
Alright, roger that. Let me take a look at this. Also, about the canon lore between Morathi and Malekith. I cannot mention this word on stream.
So,
what is that relationship?
While I'm finding a tactful way to answer that question, that's the actual article. Obviously, people have they pointed out the more ridiculous parts, but this thing you're looking at is legit.
Rocks screaming from the heavens?
Like, and it's
that's great.
So the bottom part is literally just the lore bit about goddamn Be'lakor, the mightiest demon prince of all time, getting killed with, I think, 5 rocks.
I guess that's one way to go.
It's like, what a loser.
Might as well.
But so the answer to that question is that so the Dark Elves have had a lot of lore over the years. And one of the things that GW leaned into back in the earlier editions, when they especially like back in 6th edition, where they tried really hard to make the setting like really, really grim and like really dark and messed up and like, oh, it's so edgy, because you know it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and Edge was in. And so one of the things they ran with is that the Dark Elves, they're so sadistic, they're so evil, yada 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 yada. And so what they ended up doing is that they wrote about how the Dark Elves were so evil and without morals and yada 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 that they slept around and just committed, you know, incest on a very regular basis.
Oh, okay.
So
just
Morathi,
to be the dark fantasy edgy guy.
Yeah, so Morathi and her son, Malekith, got it on, you know, a lot. Now, to be fair to the old, and that's no longer really mentioned in modern lore, and that's more because that Malekith is encased in a suit of armor that's his literal flesh now, because he got bound.
I don't think he could take that off, right? Because he got seared by the flames when he wanted to become the
that is his
Phoenix King.
Yeah, the Phoenix Flame, or the Flame of Shurin. Yeah. So he is encased in that armor. It is his life support system now. But so they ended up dropping that because it didn't really make sense for him to pursue pleasures of the flesh when he literally can't. But but that is all that to say that it's not actually that ridiculous in the lore for there to be incestuous relationships between like elves and dwarves, because for them there's no like danger to it. Like for humans, you know, we have all of the downsides that come with it, but for elves and dwarves, they don't have the downsides. And they also, for them, there's no cultural stigma about it, like humans have.
Interesting.
Now, obviously, that can be shocking for human readers who are reading it for the first time.
Sure.
Like,
I can imagine.
What is this? Lador, I think Cataclysm
It's basically the equivalent of like throwing a new manga reader and recommending them Berserk as their first manga. It's go over very well.
Yeah, Berserk has definitely had its influence on Warhammer Fantasy as well. But Berserk has influenced everything.
Oh, dude! All the references I've been seeing, checking out Elden Ring and Dark Souls lore, 100%. Berserk is just so pivotal.
Yeah, I want to read it at some point.
All right. Oh, you haven't read it yet? Oh,
no,
you totally should.
I am much more of like, actually, that's not probably true to say. I very rarely, I think I've read one manga in my entire life. I tend to prefer like an animated format, you know, and like watching like anime and stuff. But Berserk, unfortunately, is notoriously not have very good adaptions.
Ooh, bro, I still cringe whenever you see Berserk CGI.
Yeah, it's like
just the way Guts walks.
It's like it's one of the most famous like series of all time. So you figure one of these days, especially after like how well like Attack on Titan got animated and everything, like can't we just have those guys do Berserk? So that
somebody just remake it. That would be so good. It's such a great series, but
but I know a lot about it through like cultural osmosis because of like, you know, like YouTube channels doing like videos on it and like talking about it and yada 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 yada. But all that to say that because I think literally the only manga I ever read in my life was that when I was younger and in high school, I remember I was watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I had got to the point in the anime where there were no more new episodes, because they were waiting for the manga to finish because they managed to catch up somehow.
The original Full Metal Alchemist. Okay.
No, not the original one. So I watched the original one and loved it, but I was watching Brotherhood, which also managed to catch up hilariously.
Dang.
And
I didn't know that.
So because I was but the manga was just finishing, so like the last handful of chapters were coming out.
Don't you think your plan about making Warhammer Lovecraft like fish meant to be based on Polynesians to be a little bit problematic?
I was so excited for it that I just couldn't take it anymore, and ended up talking to a friend of mine who just manga is like their thing, and ended up you know, going in there and being like, all right, I'll just read it. I'll read the end. So I read the last few chapters because I wasn't willing to wait anymore. And that is literally the only manga I've ever read in my life. Oh, you're going to war with Slanesh demons. Fun. Oh, you've teleported off to go do your XCOM stuff.
I'm gonna be going to war with everybody. This is the genocide campaign. Maybe I should invite you into these in case, you know.
Oh, no, trust me.
I don't know.
So my Tehennwen has a gimmick where when I reach stage 2 of my prophecy, which I'm about to reach, it causes all Skaven factions to immediately declare war on all Lizardmen factions, and nobody gets a choice in the matter. It's automatic.
I see. Okay.
All right. Lenore, thank you for the super chat. Cataclysm spells would be nice with the geomantic web. Yep, that'd be cool. How do dwarves of the Empire deal with the whole Skaven don't exist deal? They find it really annoying. and they're just like, yeah, they do.
Awesome line, Saurus
And
cheered.
they don't argue it that much.
Supportive
But
bits for
if a
teaching our little
human-
boy Xero the ways of Warhammer. One day he will grow up to become a proper Saurus.
If a human keeps insisting that Skaven do not exist to a dwarf, or makes the probably fatal mistake of calling a dwarf a liar, the dwarf will quite literally attack them.
Oh god.
That is a good way to get a dwarf to beat the absolute hell out of you.
Well, that's going in the book.
Oh yeah, big time. But most dwarfs just ignore them, like they don't consider it worth the effort on arguing. They'll just say, nope, they're a real thing, they're a real thing, and if the human disagrees, they'll just go, well, you're a dumb manling, but, you know, I warned you. And they'll just kind of leave it at that. But Slanesh would be the god of nerds, not even a meme, we're all obsessed. Yeah. Slanesh would be the god of autistic people, probably. With the fixation.
I can't even disagree with what little bit of lore I know.
Awesome Alliance Source, thank you so much for the bits.
Best that. Sanctum.
Do I think my plan about making Warhammer Lovecraft Fishmen to be based on Polynesians is a bit too problematic? That's not what I would do, to be clear. I think taking inspiration from Polynesian mythology and like certain like weapons that they used and like tactics they used in like historical battles and stuff, inspiration is fine. Based on no.
Here's question for you, Sotek. Can you ask Sotek if he can convince CA to add narrative campaign goals to the faction that has them into immortal empires? He knows what I'm talking about, I think.
That is an ongoing battle, but you know, I don't know if they're gonna do it, but it's definitely something that has been discussed.
Okay. And another one, in celebration of the new DLC, could Sotek please elaborate on the Slayer cult and how they're more nuanced than the community thinks? This is something I'd like to know as well, because I was kind of surprised when I was watching the new trailer, and I saw a Slayer with a gun. I had always been under the assumption that everybody would just go melee because they wanted to die an honorable death, but it seems to be more than that.
So, oh yeah. So, if you want a really in-depth answer, there's a Lorebeards episode about Slayers that I would highly recommend. On me or Andy Law's channel, one of the two, the Warhammer channel. But to give the brief version of that story, so the Slayer cult is so Slayers are dwarfs who have experienced an extremely traumatic event in their lives that was so traumatic that they believe the only like their honor or just something has happened that was so bad that their honor has been forever besmirched, and it would be impossible to reclaim it by any other means than them quite literally committing what you can think of as a form of ritual suicide. And so what it is when you take the Slayer Oath, you are basically, from a cultural sense, you're dying. You are giving up your life, you're giving up who you used to be, you're giving up everything that you used to possess, as if you had passed away. And then you go out to seek an honorable doom, fighting the biggest, baddest thing you can. However, within that, there's a lot of nuance, because Slayers are individuals, and how they're going to pursue their doom is going to change from dwarf to dwarf. And the stereotypical version is, your Gotrek Garnisons of the world, or your Ungrim Iron Fist, right? Where you have a Slayer who's got a big old axe, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to chop up a big beastie, and that's my goal. That's my life. But for some Slayers, like Malachi Makaisen, he works under the understanding or the idea that if he is going to, because it's not just to die an honorable death, many Slayers choose to purely emulate Grimnir, who was the ancestor god that was the first ever Slayer, because he was the one that kind of created the concept of the Slayer Oath, because he went off to go fight the Chaos Powers in the North, and there's a whole thing about that. But many dwarves will follow that tradition of emulating the ancestor god, which means that you get the ritual tattoos and you don't wear any armor. You don't most of them don't even wear a shirt, and you get a melee weapon and you go find the biggest bad beastie that you can and you die. But some choose not to follow that tradition and instead focus on trying to follow the kind of more of the thought or the purpose behind a worthy doom, which is properly interpreted means that you have to fight as hard as you possibly can using every tool, effort, ability, skill, whatever that you have to fight to the bitter end. That's what it means to die honorably.
Oh.
So Malachi Makaisen, for instance, runs under the idea that, well, my genius in engineering, my ability to develop weapons, that is the greatest fight that I have. So my goal is to create the deadliest weapon, the most powerful weapons to take down the most powerful beasts, and I'm going to do everything in my power to create devices to slay these great enemies. And so he uses his engineering as that method, as opposed to using just an axe. Because there's nothing in the Slayer Oath that dictates that they have to use an axe. What weapon they use is up to them. Slayer pirates, for instance, are notorious for carrying pistols because they're often at sea. So they have to deal with the situation that the big sea monsters and enemy ships and all that are not going to engage with them fairly. They're going to be trying to avoid them or running away from them. So in their logic, using a gun is fair game because those things are not coming to them. So it's only fair that they have the ability to shoot them, to like cripple them, get their attention, piss them off, slow them down, and using that weapon to ultimate effectiveness. Now, some Slayers will disagree with that. You know, you'll have some Slayers that be like, oh no, you shouldn't use ranged weapons, you should only use melee weapons. But that's just a matter of personal opinion. There's nothing within the Slayer Oath that dictate that you must use melee weapons. The only rule that is very, very strict is that Slayers are not allowed to wear armor. Because they are not supposed to use defensive aspects in the form of wearing like runic armor or steel or like really impressive armor meant to keep them alive, because they're supposed to be seeking a worthy doom, which means that they will leave themselves vulnerable to attack. But offensively, anything's fair game. The one exception being Ungrim Iron Fist.
Okay.
But that's because Ungrim Iron Fist has the contradiction oath, where the oath of kingship says that he has to do everything in his power to remain alive for his people and to lead as king, whereas the Slayer Oath says he's supposed to seek doom, and that puts him in a catch-22, which is a whole thing, because Ungrim didn't actually take the Slayer Oath, he inherited it from his ancestors.
Ah, okay. I see. So yeah, the weapon doesn't really matter as long as they get to fight to their fullest extent. But regardless of that, like, even if they put armor on, that would maybe increase their combat effectiveness, but that's kind of not part of the Slayer Oath.
Yeah, it could be argued, certainly, but most would point to that, like, Grimnir in the myth very deliberately stripped off all of his armor and then put on the, like, had all the ritual tattoos put on and kept the tattoos exposed. So because that's the way the ancestor did it, that is the way we must do it, is the way the dwarves kind of look at it.
Okay, I see. Alright, well, at the moment, I may have run into an issue. Apparently this is supposed to be a normal XCOM mission, but attacking some beastmen in their own city turned out not to be the greatest idea. I can get a Pyrrhic victory on this auto-resolve. There's a heckin' lot of them. Yeah. But maybe we can fight this to get a better resolve. Okay. Yeah, let's see. I can auto-resolve this and lose my entire army, but
yeah, we can definitely do this. Yeah, just gotta make sure we take out like the giant, the Manticore, and the Malagor pretty quick, and then the rest will fall apart.
Okay. Those are the units. I mean, the rest seem basically like chaff, but I think some of their units also have like stock or whatever. I had to face off.
There's a couple little nasty things here and there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least it's not as bad as like fighting a wood elf settlement.
Who's
Those
my
are
friend?
nightmare.
This is Xero. He's a VTuber. That's
Hello.
that I met recently, and we decided it'd be fun to do a little co-op campaign thing that we're kind of messing around with, and we're enjoying just chatting. But he's fairly new to the Warhammer verse sphere, and the mods have been posting link to his channel on a regular basis. So make sure you go check it out and subscribe and watch all his videos and stuff.
Thank you very much to the mods. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, do your damn job. Fucking mods.
That's okay. So if you go over to this channel, you'll be treated one way. If you're over to that channel, you'll be treated a different way. It really depends on what you guys are into, I suppose.
God, it's like I don't pay them. Ugh.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, maybe is it better for these like siege battles if we're kind of on the losing side to kind of group up everybody on one side, or is it better to spread out our units?
So it depends. Because you're playing Oxiodal and you have a lot of stealth units like Skinks, Skink Stalker or Chameleon Skinks, there can be an advantage to deploying a handful of your stealth units like on one flank and the rest of your army on the other flank, because the invisible units will be invisible until they're up on the objective. However, because on this map there's only 3 capture points and the AI tends to be very good about defending all 3 of them simultaneously, it's probably going to be better for us to do like one big spear thrust from one direction, which I would probably recommend coming at them more from this side because we have more space to utilize as opposed to like this really, really narrow loop. That being said, sending like a group of like 2 to 3 chameleon skinks and maybe 2 chameleon stalkers through this little narrow lane, and like I can be in charge of that, can be really, really good because that gives the AI something else they have to deal with. And then you can have like your main army come from the left flank, which has a larger deployment zone to mess with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can work with that. Let's see. You can take these units. If there's anything that you need, just let me know. Also, actually, probably the spellcaster as well. Whoop. Bam. All right, cool beans.
Sure, I can do that.
Zotek, what if a melee slayer runs across a flying enemy who cheats?
You throw your axe. Yeah, like you be inventive is what you do. Like, and you know, slayers will use things like traps. You know, they might hide or use stealth, or they'll like get somebody else to help in some fashion, or they'll make like a little makeshift javelin. Like, you know, they'll problem solve. Worst case scenario, you use your melee weapon as a throwing weapon, and really hope you don't miss.
Dang. Yeah, it's just straight up Vermintide in here. Just throw that axe. That's me. Ah, no, that's Vanguard deployment. Okay, cool beans. And, yeah. Hopefully this goes okay. Let's do this! Where is the enemy? Okay, yeah, actually they deployed quite far back.
Yeah, so I want to make sure to really put the aggression on that big old flying boy up there, because Malagor is a pain in the butt.
Alright, I see. What is he on?
Oh, he's just flying.
Oh no, he's just flying, okay.
Yeah, that's the Crow Father, so he's got a big old pair of crow wings behind him, or sprouting out of his back. He's got a neat, he was born with those. Neat trick.
The Beastmen are kind of interesting to me because I think they kind of just mutated from the Chaos energy or whatever.
So
that's just a little bit of lore that I know.
Yeah, their creation was that when Chaos first came into the world, that initial burst of just raw chaos that showed up all over the planet caused a lot of things to happen. And the Beastmen were created by a variety of sources, like, and there's not like necessarily one easy answer. It depends on like who you ask, so to speak. Where some myths say that the Beastmen were created by early humans who had started to domesticate farm animals. And as all that chaos came flooding into the world, it caused many of those humans and those animals to literally fuse and meld together. And they became these horrific hybrid creatures. Whereas other stories say that what happened is that when all of the warpstone and chaos mutating energy came into the world, it caused humans, many humans, to mutate so that their outer nature reflected their inner nature. So the bestial primal self took over and turned them into these bestial monstrosities, and that some animals were in turn mutated to stand upright and have like human flesh sprout from their bodies as their intellect enhanced, and they became risen up to a higher state of existence. And it's likely that all of these things happened simultaneously, and that the beastmen were slowly stabilized over the course of thousands of years from a bunch of different creatures mutating in various ways.
Oh, okay, I see. That's that's a lot. I think the Skaven also kind of have a similar-ish origin story, although that's even more ambiguous than what you told me for the Beastmen.
Well, yeah, so, well, the Skaven, funny enough, the Skaven are actually quite simple, of that they were literally a bunch of rats that lived in an area where there was a bunch of, like, warpstone meteors that hit, like, a long time ago.
Oh, and they just mutated from the warpstone?
They mutated over time and kept evolving until they evolved into the Skaven. However, their evolution was directed or kind of controlled, or guided is a better term, by their god,
the Great Horned,
known as the Great Horned Rat. And the Great Horned Rat predates them, in that the Great Horned Rat is the god of ruination. So he is the end of all things, the devolution of all society and culture and civilization into just absolute ruin. So the most basic, like, breaking everything down until all that's left is just a hellscape of debris and sludge and whatever's left for him and him alone to enjoy and devour until he is all that's left, and probably would inevitably, devour himself or die or whatever. And the Skaven are his children. They are what he created in his own image.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I thought that basically the origin of the Skaven kind of just started and ended at the Doom of Kavzar, which I believe is now Skaven Blight.
That is the big origin myth for them. But the mysterious stranger that shows up in the story, who comes to the people of Kavzar and is like, "Hey, I will finish your Tower of Babel for you."
Yeah, I'm gonna put this random bell here.
Yeah, I will.
That's nothing bad.
I'll complete this impossible tower for you if you allow me to put a dedication to my god on the top of it. They're like, "Oh, okay, that sounds fine," and bad idea.
Who knew? Yeah, just letting a random stranger do weird things to an impossible tower. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the Horned Rat is nasty. He is a piece of work. He is genuinely one of the most dangerous gods in the world. In many ways, he's far more dangerous than the regular four.
Really?
Because unlike the four major powers, which are much more about, all of them to an extent represent a aspect of life that's just taken too far, taken to too great of an extreme. The Great Horned Rat, he represents the end. He is ruination. So there is nothing. Everything breaks down until absolute oblivion. But in not in the cold undead way that Nagash would want, but in the horrible endless legions of screaming rats that devour everything and defecate and devour that, and then start devouring each other because there's nothing left for them to eat. And they inherit all of existence only to ruin it. That is what he is. He is literally the end of all things for himself.
Oh, Jesus,
and ultimately,
yeah.
he's very self-destructive. So, like, if he wins, it's bad.
I see. Is he, power level comparable to any of the four at all?
He's in their ballpark, but he's definitely not equal to any of them one-on-one.
Okay.
He's just a tiny bit below them. But he's also, like, way younger than they are. You know, they've been around. They've been around for since the Cataclysm, whereas he didn't pop up for a good couple thousand years till after the Cataclysm was done, or after a couple thousand years after the Cataclysm was already over.
I see. Ask Sotek about how he thinks the greenskins could be updated and how Sia's #1 priority should be moving Wurzak's star position down to the Southlands where he rightly belongs.
The
greenskins are... Yeah?
That's an interesting perspective. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. As far as, like, moving Wurzak. Like, I can see the argument. But I feel like his current start position is actually pretty good. Though... Okay, so I think that they should do a Champions of Chaos DLC, but for greenskins. So I would do three new Legendary Lords, where you get a Forest Goblin Legendary Lord, a Orc War Boss Legendary Lord, and another Orc, being Gorfang. The trio being Gorfang Rockgut, Tenant Four Eyes, and Gorbad Ironclaw. And then you basically get like 3 new generic characters and a bunch of other little things. I have a whole thing on it that you can go find, but I'll be doing a video on it soon. So just I don't want to talk like forever about it. But there's a lot that needs to be added to the greenskins. I'll put it this way: in actual Warhammer Fantasy and like the tabletop and everything, the greenskins by far have the largest roster in the game. And you can see in Total War that is not represented.
Yeah, that's not the case. Yeah.
That giant is in your lines now. Have just all your ranged units just jump on him, because shooting will just melt him really, really fast, and he hits really hard.
I've always felt like, the giants do hit really hard. The main issue is that they're just such a big target, so I've never really felt like they were a good unit to recruit.
If you're when a human player is controlling a giant, they can be absolutely devastating and like terrifying, especially if you have 2 of them, because they have just so much health and you can just curb stomp people. Especially if you get them on like enemy characters, they will like murder them in just a couple hits. But the AI is a little overly aggressive with them. Because obviously you want to screen for them, right? You want to have like your own units running out ahead of them to tie up enemy ranged units or distract them.
Yeah.
You know, the AI just kind of throws them at you, so they tend to get mobbed.
Like, for instance, in this situation, it's just the giant and 1 unit going in. Yeah, they're not gonna have a good time here.
Just gonna keep popping Malagor up there with fireballs.
Roger that. He's almost down to half health just from those fireballs, to be honest. Oh, no, don't go there. I forgot about you guys. Run. Well, it's good that all of my chameleons are just faster than this giant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, giants, they were hilarious in tabletop as well. Like, a lot of people loved them, but they had no armor, literally, at all. So if your opponent had poison attacks, which they had pretty high toughness and high wounds, but poison was a mechanic that allowed you to ignore toughness. So like someone would bring a giant and a unit of 10 skinks would walk up and just go with their blowpipes and it just instantly fucking died.
Oh, poor giant.
So you know, no one ever took them because the poor bastards just died instantly.
I guess you could use them as like a meme unit. Forward. Yeah, I have no idea how to play the tabletop for either like fantasy or 40k. I was asking a chat.
Very
like,
fun, but it takes a long time to explain.
I mean, I kind of feel the same way about like Total War as well. Like Total War is just such a fun game, but I can understand why a lot of people haven't gotten into it because it's just there's just so much to like learn.
Yeah, the Warhammer fans. Granted, the new Age of Sigmar's got a new edition that's about to start, and Age of Sigmar, the rules are looking like they're going to be very, very new player friendly for 4th edition, which is good. I'm nervous about it because like whenever they change the rules that dramatically, I'm always scared that they're going to be trash. But hopefully they'll be good. But the new fantasy rules are very fun, but like it's a lot. Like just the section on movement is like I think it's like 30 pages. Now, granted, love the game. I love it. I'm happy to teach anyone that ever wants to play, but it's a lot.
Okay, yeah, I see. I'll definitely learn about it. Maybe if we ever do a stream again, I can ask some questions.
Hell yeah.
For now, I'm completely in the dark though. Yeah.
We'll have to do a board game stream at some point because I fucking love playing board games. There's a really fun board game that if you have like 4 to 5 people, it's called Chaos in the Old World. And what it is that every player gets to pick one of the dark gods. You know, Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, and then you can also play the Horned Rat. And your goal is that you have to try and destroy the old world while also keeping a close eye on the other gods and like just screwing with them constantly. Because your goal is that you want to destroy the world, but you want to destroy it so that you end up being the most powerful. So you're constantly messing with one another to try and screw one another over, but you have to do it carefully because if you mess with each other too much, it could result in like the people of the old world unifying and fighting back against you, and then all of you lose. So you have to strike this balance.
A classic story.
Yeah, so you have to strike this balance of stabbing each other in the back as much as possible while still making sure the good guys don't win. Very fun game.
I see. So it's basically Mario Party. Gotcha.
Yeah, without the mini games, but yeah. But it's a pretty hilarious game, and all the gods have very unique mechanics. Where it's like Khorne literally is just there to like beat everybody to death, and cares about nothing else. He's like, I'm just going to punch until I win. Whereas Tzeentch is just like a massive douchebag who has a bunch of mechanics to just screw with the other players and interrupt what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Nurgle is slow to start, but once he gets going, it's very hard to stop. And Slaanesh has some really interesting mechanics of twisting a lot of players' like advantages against them in clever ways, and using the good guys as his own weapons, like tricking the good guys to fight for him. I'm in the wrong category on Twitch. Whoops.
A classic. I see. But yeah, I feel like Slaanesh can be kind of similar to Tzeentch in that way, of like just tricking people into working for them. But obviously, yeah, there's similarities and differences across the board, at least from my understanding.
Yeah, and then with the Great Horned Rat, you literally just spam the table with Skaven.
Oh well, gee, yeah.
Yeah, you just
That's your best
drown
move.
everyone else in rats. It's hilarious.
Kiwi, I have no idea what you're talking about. You can't just keep spamming ask him about my faves. I don't. What are your faves? What?
Dude, I fucking love when chat like is like, streamer is obviously a mind reader. Like, if I just ask him this random question without any context, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. That is the bane of the gaslighting golfers. Kiwi, that's in Warhammer 40k. We're talking about fantasy. I mean, you probably know a lot about 40k as well.
I know a reasonable amount, but I mean, if you ask me, I'm just gonna shit on it. So ask with caution.
Oh no. But yeah, I was just trying to like introduce Kiwi, my friend here, into Warhammer. And knowing her, I was like, Kiwi, there is this race of like fungus people in 40k that gaslight themselves so much that they believe in something and it makes it real. And yeah, that kind of got her interest peaked.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the greenskins
yeah.
in fantasy do that too. The savage orcs are the most notorious for that because they paint themselves with war paint because they believe the war paint will protect them, and because they believe in it so hard, it literally does. So like the reason they all have physical resistance in Total War Warhammer is because of their magic war paint that they're like, I painted myself blue,
that's cool.
so it's gonna deflect arrows, and then it does.
Oh.
And also that's how their magic works as well. Greenskin magic is not actually magic. It's actually like more psychic emanations. But for the sake of like ease in gameplay, they just represent it with magic. But greenskins don't actually use the winds of magic like other races do.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that why Wurzak has all the like the paintings and the masks and stuff?
Oh yeah. He's like he's the big Savage Orc character. He's a Savage Orc great shaman.
Okay, I see.
And that's why he does his little dance.
Incorporating.
I'm sure you've seen his legendary idol animation where he's just dancing up a jig.
Yeah, I've seen it plenty of times in plenty of videos. That man's just really jolly and happy. And also in my chat too, apparently. Alright.
My favorite thing about Wurzag is that he developed a very unusual ability where he can, by like chanting and doing one of his little things, he has gained the ability to somehow turn enemy wizards into squigs. So if you ever look at his model, he's got a cage on his back, and that's where his squiggly beast is. It's not technically a squig, it's called a squiggly beast because it looks like a squig. But the squiggly beast is actually a rival shaman who got in a fight with him, and Wurzag got so mad that he just magicked him into a squig. And turned him into a magic battery.
Oh, that's great though.
which is very disrespectful in the best way.
Yeah. I mean, classic greenskin stuff.
So if you want to send your army up through this avenue there, that'll be the best way to finish this battle.
Yeah.
Because if you capture
it looks like they're building barricades everywhere except there.
Trying to kill this damn Gorbel, and he's just tanking.
Yeah, man is I think they have a lot of missile resistance. Right. Let's see.
Yeah, this one's got 15%, but you know, he's just
okay.
Got some just sad little chameleon skinks just trying to blow dart him to death. He does have 125 armor, so those darts aren't necessarily doing a lot.
They'll do like a 1-2 damage.
That's okay. That's what the Troglodon's
we do have the poison on them.
The Troglodon Troglodon's gonna hit like a truck because it's got anti-large on the venom.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, trying to deal with the Beastmen as the Skaven early game was just a nightmare for me. So I'm like, I'm not gonna use.
Oh yeah, they can be pretty nasty because they're so fast and aggressive.
Yeah. Let's move here. Okay. I believe earlier on, chat was like, Xero, we want you to learn the lore about Chaos Dwarves from Sotek, so...
Yeah, that's a very
what's
broad...
the dealio? That's a very broad request. I guess we could start with, like, the differences between the dwarves and the Chaos Dwarves.
Oh, I see. One of them is Chaos, and one is not. Therefore, there we go. I'm Lore Master. I did the job.
Heck yeah, dudes.
So the Chaos Dwarves...
they use magic, right?
Yeah. So to put it really... To put it in a kind of a succinct passage, the Chaos Dwarves were originally dwarves who basically pulled the classic Moria of they dug too greedily and too deep. except for instead of digging down into a mine, the dwarves were following the World's Edge Mountains to build their empire, and they started in the very, very south, and then they started working their way north as they expanded, but eventually they arrived at the northernmost tip of the World's Edge Mountains, and there was this big old plateau to the east of them that they called Zorn Uzkul, which means the Great Skull Land, because it was just kind of a barren hellhole that had all these big old bones all over the place. But one thing they realized about Zorn Uzkul is that because it was in a really, there's like lots of volcanoes and tectonic activity, and it's just a really fiery, nasty place. One thing they realized was that Zorn Uzkul produced a lot of high-value rare minerals and like gems and oil and like all these really high-value materials. So some of the dwarves said, "Oh, well, we should expand into Zorn Uzkul and we should set up shop to take advantage of all this material, all these materials." And the other dwarves looked around at this literal burnt hellscape and were like, "Nah, this looks like a big no. Like, this has got horror movie bullshit written all over it." Like, they could sense how corrupt the Earth was, because there was a lot of chaos corruption in that part of the world. And so most of the dwarves turned back and went back to the World's Edge Mountains and went west instead into the mountains of Norska, or just went back south. But a good bunch of them stayed, and they expanded into Zorn Uzkul, and they built a hold there on the plateau called Uzkalak. And they set up their new hold, and everything was going great until a giant, horrible chaos invasion came crashing down from the eastern steppes to the north, the northeast of Zorn Uzkul. And this big old terrifying army from a chaos tribe known as, oh god, I'm trying to remember which chaos tribe it was. I think it was the Tongue, or it was the Tong. So the Tong showed up, and the Tong were like the scariest motherfuckers that had ever been seen, like ever. They were horrifying, and nothing could stop them. And they ended up attacking Zorn Uzkalak and surrounding it and laying siege to it. And the dwarfs there were completely surrounded, and there was no way out, and they were locked in the depths, and they started praying to the ancestor gods for deliverance. And they heard no answer. And whether that's because they were truly abandoned by the ancestor gods because of their greed and their hubris, which got them into this situation in the first place, or that maybe like the ancestor gods just couldn't reach them there, or who knows what happened. But for whatever reason, the ancestor gods did not respond, and the dwarves kept delving deeper and deeper and deeper, because that was the only thing they could do at this point to try and survive, was just to keep digging for more resources to fuel their mines and everything, to keep holding out. And it is said that in the deepest depths of the darkness, something heard their cries, their pleas, because they cried out for anyone to save them. And in the very classic, concept of crying out to the heavens for anyone to help you, anyone at all. And
obviously the evil things respond.
You're not always going to like who answers. And the entity that answered them was Hashut, the father of darkness, also known as the god of tyranny and greed. And Hashut kind of came out of nowhere.
That makes sense.
The bull god, and was basically told them, "Hey, tell you what, if you agree to sell your souls to me and to dedicate yourselves completely and utterly to worship of me, I will give you answers, give you truths that will see you survive this and become something greater." And in their desperation, they end up agreeing, so they forsake the ancestor gods and they take up worship of Hashut. And Hashut taught them the ways of magic, sorcery, demonology, new kinds of engineering. He revealed a lot of really crazy things to them. And if you want to get like the full details of like what Hashit is and all the other crazy shit, go watch the Tsar Nagrand episode of Lorebeards. You can literally just type in like Lorebeards Chaos Dwarfs or Lorebeards Ancestor or Tsar Nagrand and find that easy. And that was, I think that's honestly our best episode. But
oh really? Okay.
But all that to say, when the Chaos Dwarfs emerged hundreds of years later, they were very different. They were heavily mutated. They now had like tusks sticking out, and some of them had like cloven hooves, and they had all sorts of like horns coming out of their foreheads and stuff. Which dwarfs are very resistant to mutation. So the fact that they mutated so consistently as a species means some really nasty shit went down. But
okay, so they're just naturally resistant to mutation and stuff?
Dwarfs are, yeah. But the Chaos Dwarves sacrificed their... Because they're exposed to so much of it, they... You know, if you're super immune to radiation, but I kick your ass into a like an active reactor, you know.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna go. You're gonna get superpowers or die.
Yeah, and some of them even went so far as to learn how to use magic and sorcery. But dwarves are so antithetical to magic that like they were designed by the old ones to be resistant to magic. So for Chaos Dwarfs to be using magic requires them to be very, very careful, because if they lose control of the magic and it runs through their body, a dwarf channeling magic through their own body causes their body to literally petrify, so it turns to stone. So if
I think one of the Chaos Dwarf legendary lords can't walk.
Yeah,
so he has to use some sort of like legs in order to help him, since his lower half is petrified, right?
Astrogoth Ironhand, he has a little.
Okay.
I call it the Waluigi suit, because the feet and the legs. And
the Waluigi suit.
If you look at his run animation, it kind of looks like Waluigi. But he his entire lower. It's not just his legs; it's his lower body. So his lower body is completely petrified, and both of his hands are petrified. So he uses that suit to allow him to move around and attack and do all sorts of stuff. It's a very impressive suit. But yeah, so when they miscast, they try and shunt the magic into a part of their body that won't result in them like dying. So like their foot will petrify, or their hand. If they get really unlucky, it'll petrify. Well, actually, if they get kind of unlucky, it'll petrify their heart, which will kill them instantly. But the worst case scenario is that it petrifies everything except your heart. In which case, the Chaos Dwarf becomes a statue, but he's still alive.
Oh no! That's a fate worse than death.
Yeah, and so the road to Tsar Nagrand is lined by statues of
with those stuff. No.
Yeah, they're put on display.
God.
Because
what? Can't you have a little respect? Give me some peace and quiet. Jeez.
Nah, dude, because clearly, since they lost control of their magic and petrified, they were weak, and there's nothing. Whoop! Looks like the game dropped.
Rip. Oh, it had to happen eventually.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, so the Chaos Dwarfs, they just have those guys hanging out as just statues, and it's something. It's something, all right.
I mean, is it to be there like some sort of grim reminder, or just to make fun of them? I don't know.
The Chaos Dwarfs abhor the concept of weakness. To them, that is like the worst thing is to be weak, or to like show mercy and any of these other concepts. So they believe if you go into the join campaign, or if you go into the multiplayer campaign and you go join with code, if you enter that code, you'll get right back to the lobby.
Roger that. Give me 1 second. My game literally just crashed.
Man. But yeah, so you have that crazy road of sorcerers. And yeah, it's basically to laugh at them. Like, it's basically like, look at these weak fools that couldn't handle it. Like, they're
Okay,
they're
so that's
pathetic.
their kind of like society. So
Oh yeah, Chaos
just the
Society
strong make fun of the weak. Oh, and it's the Chaos Dwarves, right? That are the reason why there's like a certain type of orc. Like
yeah, they created the Black Orcs.
Yeah, to make them like stronger and better to do their jobs as slaves, but then that kind of backfired. How did that happen? Oh wait, Grimgor was one of them, right?
Yes.
I think that was the entire thing with Grimgor's lore.
Yeah, Grimgor Ironhide was once a Chaos Dwarf slave, which actually means that he is really fucking old. He's about he's roughly that's not you. That's a random person. Be gone, random person. He was a slave of the Chaos Dwarfs, which means that he is somewhere in the ballpark of like 3,000 years old-ish. Because the Black Orc slave rebellion was a long time ago. There you are.
Yeah, here I am. So for orcs, I guess they can just keep on going indefinitely, right? Because of I guess what they are, kind of just like fungus spores.
Yeah, the gimmick behind greenskins is that generally speaking, as long as they keep fighting and they keep indulging in violence, they cannot die of old age. However, because they are such a violent species, it is very, very, very unlikely that they will live very long. But like Grimgor, and the thing is that the longer they fight and the longer they live, the bigger they get. So like Grimgor is huge. Like the Total War Warhammer doesn't actually do him justice. He's usually from the lore perspective, he's depicted as usually being the size of a troll, or if anything, a teeny tiny bit bigger. But like he's fucking, and that's with him wearing an insanely heavy set of like full plate armor that is weighing him down so much that it kind of compresses his frame. And he's like hulking over, right? He doesn't have very good posture. And he's still the size of a troll. You know, you're still dealing with like a 10 to 12 foot tall guy. Like he's fucking huge.
Gotcha.
I think it will have left us off on our last autosave. Yeah, which would have been the turn before.
Unfortunately, it will have left us.
Woo!
God damn it. Oh well. Okay, maybe I can just abandon this. That's
well, so
I'm not willing
what I
to
would
fight
recommend,
that
what I
fight.
would recommend doing is, so go to the Sunken Kurnock, start the battle, but retreat and go into an ambush stance. And see if we can lure Malagor out.
Really?
Because if you go into ambush, there's a good chance he'll come out on his own, and then you can. And he'll either run into you, in which case you can just murder him in ambush, or at the very least he'll be by himself, and isolated, so you'll be able to just jump on him.
Huh. Okay, I can try that. So, I mean, I've already encircled, so I encircle for one turn, and then I back off an ambush?
Oh, no, I mean, you can do it right now.
Okay.
So if you just click on Oxiodal and you right-click on the settlement, and you just do retreat.
Okay. I didn't know the tech. Siege.
It'll look like a little flag. Yeah, and then once he moves to where he's going, you just change his army stance to ambush stance. You might have to move him like a little bit further away, but you might be able to do it right there.
Yeah, I got this.
40%.
Right, awesome.
Also, fun thing you may not know of, because a lot of people don't know about this, but if you click on an army, like Oxiodal's army, and you just mouse over the terrain around the map, the campaign map, and you like just wait a second for the little tooltip to show up, it'll show you what the ambush % chance is in that terrain, so you can kind of like mouse around and find where like the highest percentage chance of laying an ambush is. Because it'll say it'll be 40% here, or if you hover over a forest, it'll be like 80%, or if you hover over like a mountain pass, it'll be 60%, etc., etc.
Gotcha. Hammond super chatted me asking if the
Hammond.
Chaos Dwarves hate weakness, do they hate Nagash?
Hammond.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll just go with yes and leave it at
that. I see. I mean, I see Hammond super chatting quite a bit during the Lorebeard episode.
I adore him.
I'm sure you're very.
I adore him while simultaneously a part of me dies when he posts. It just depends.
Alright. I see. Okay. Yeah, for my situation, I think I'm just gonna back off. It's like, oh no, the faction summons a new Bray Herd. Whatever shall we do?
Yeah, that's one of the big complaints about the Oxiodal campaign, is that the debuff or like the downsides are just not great. Like, it would be so much more exciting if they were like actual permanent buffs to like just all beastmen or all warriors of chaos or all demons. That's one of the things that I remember when his campaign was initially being made. The initial debuffs were a little more harsh, but then they lightened them up a little bit. But because the tricky thing is that the devs weren't really able to make it where you get different penalties depending on the difficulty level. It's like just universal, which is not great, because that means you get into a situation where they're like, well, we don't want to make it too hard, because then someone might want to play like a normal campaign or an easy campaign, and if you make it where it's like insanely hard, then they're just gonna get their ass kicked. But I always counter with it's fine for like one of the Lizardmen campaigns to be super hard.
Oh yeah, that is true. I mean, there's plenty of other ways to play a super easy campaign. Just pick Gorok,
plus it just
win.
It just makes it so much more compelling.
Yeah, for sure. Chat wants to know if the vampire counts should get a rework, and if they do, what would you do for them?
I actually have a whole playlist you can find on my channel called that, which if you type in, go to your YouTube search bar after the stream, not during it, after the stream, and just type in like Lore Master of Sotek Bloodlines DLC, and you will find it. But I made a proposal video series called the Vampiric Bloodlines DLC, and my whole proposal for it is that the gimmick is it would be like the Champions of Chaos, and it would be the exact same format of you get 4 legendary lords, 1 for each non-Von Karstein bloodline. You get 1 new legendary hero, being Conrad von Karstein, maybe 2. I think I said 1 or 2. Like, if you do 2, you get the Necromancer Dieter Hellschnitt, who is a big bad necromancer that rides on a Chaos Manticore, or an Undead Manticore, depending on which version you go with, which is just awesome. And then you get Conrad von Karstein as legendary hero. And then for your 4 legendary lords, you get Neferata, the first vampire representing the Lamians. You get Wallach Harkin, the founder of the Blood Knights and the Order of the Blood Dragons, as the Blood Dragon legendary lord. Then you get Zacharias the Ever-Living, who's the big bad of the Necrarchs, as their legendary lord. And then Vorag Bloody Tooth as the first Ghoul King, as the big bad for the Strigoi. And then you add a whole bunch of new units, which I detail in that video. And then you clean up some mechanics, like make Blood Kisses a more exciting mechanic that has like actual interactions. In those videos, I also detailed like specific campaign mechanics for all of the legendary lords, including the ones we already have. So like making, like, I think Manfred with the Books of Nagash is great, but like, giving Vlad and Isabella access to the Electrocount system, so they have like a unique interaction with it, and yada 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 yada. Go watch the thing.
Yeah, that's a lot to cover, but I feel like there's just so much that they could do with the lore. It's just gonna take some time for them to program into it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be working on a Warhammer 4 anytime soon.
Well, there will not be a Warhammer 4. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah.
I still think there's a lot of DLC to do. I do know, like, I don't care how many people are like, oh, it's not gonna happen. Like, it's a fact there's going to be a Total War Warhammer 40,000. I don't know if it's going to be in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, but I swear to God, it's already being worked on. Like, I would be willing to sell one of my kidneys on a bet. That's how confident I feel about that.
I mean, I feel like they should capitalize on it. 40k is popping off, and yeah, it's kind of the thing that sells. So, although I'm interested to see how they'd implement the Total War system into 40k.
That is the big question
with the power
but
scaling
it's like,
and stuff.
You know, if Dawn of War could pull it off, I think Total War could pull it off.
Yeah. An extension of that, Chad also wants to know about the Tomb Kings. I feel like the Tomb Kings haven't gotten much love ever since their initial DLC too.
Yeah, Tomb Kings, Tomb Kings would work fine in just like Thrones of Decay, Shadows of Change, Lord Pack type thing. Like you just put them up against one or two other baddies, and you do Ramhotep the Visionary as your legendary lord, who is a necrotect who is hilarious. So the necrotects are the guys that actually like built the pyramids and all the great structures, and they built the construct. So they built like they built the scorpions and the giant monsters and everything, and they're hysterical.
So cool looking.
They are hysterical because they're so angry all the time because they create all these beautiful works of art, these amazing statues, these great cities, and then all of them died, which most of them were ritually killed after they completed a project, because a Tomb King wouldn't want them to create like a masterpiece and then go on to make a masterpiece for somebody else. They wanted to call dibs. So they would be like, all right, after you finish this project, we're going to ritually mummify you and bury you inside or around whatever it is you made. Ramhotep, though, was fucking hilarious because he would complete a major work while impersonating somebody else. So he would pretend to be somebody else, and he would either just flat out lie and be like, oh, my name's this one guy. So when the project was finished, the Tomb Guard would go pick up.
They would go after that guy?
Yeah,
oh,
be like,
no.
all right, time to mummify you. And the guy's like, what's happening? And they would just mummify the dude alive and throw him in the bottom.
Poor guy.
And they're like, so there's a bunch of goofy stories about how Ramnatep would like, sometimes he'd find another necrotect who was like an alcoholic. So he would just keep them really drunk all the time so they weren't aware of what he was doing. And then he would just hand them over being all drunk to the authorities, being like, oh, there's the guy. Like, it's time to bury him. So he ended up running around, which like was a great honor for those guys, but it led to all these goofy circumstances. Them being like, I didn't. This isn't mine. Like, they just get killed. But furthermore from that, the reason they're like fucking furious. Oh no, we dropped again. Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. That so they think about it, right? They create all these beautiful works of art, all these beautiful statues, yada 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 yada, and then they died. And when they came back to life thousands of years later, they wake up and they come out and look around, and everything they've made has been destroyed. It's like it's weathered away, or for the most part,
that's why they're all angry.
Yeah, was destroyed by invading armies. So you have a bunch of like just imagine you have all these VTubers, right, who've like made their models and all their beautiful assets or everything, and they go to bed one night and they wake up and find out some fucking kid has come into their office and like smashed their PC and burned all their like art and did all that shit. Like they would murder that child. That's what a necrotect
is.
Obviously. Celestial monkey train shield. X100.
That is just
what a great comparison.
I'm completing Elspeth and trying Malachi. I've started
Poor
a new
necrotects,
cafe
man.
campaign.
They commissioned their
Shocking, I know.
VTuber models and now they
Which
can't
dragon
even
child is
use
the
them.
most likely to
Fuck.
employ Gatrek and Felix? And why is it
Yeah, so
drowning?
they are these salt. That's why they're, despite the fact that Tomb Kings are undead, so they're not supposed to. They generally aren't supposed to have psychology rules. All necrotechs have the hatred special rule, and their hatred is so intense that in tabletop they had this rule where if you put them into a unit of Tomb King skeletons, who like even the most base skeletons are purely automatons, like they don't have any emotions because they were preserved so not greatly that the only thing they really are capable of is just performing the basic roles that they served in life,
just
as like
moving,
soldiers,
like
staying in formation, wielding their weapons, but like in a very staccato mechanical way, which is why their
Gotcha.
weapon skill was so bad. But if you stuck a necrotect in the unit, his hatred was so infectious that even these automaton guys would remember what it was to hate other people.
Oh
and would gain the hatred rule.
They're just exuding an aura of hatred so strong. Everybody remembers what they got pissed off about last week. Dang.
Yeah.
That's insane.
They're fucking hilarious. I love them to absolute death.
I see. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. I didn't know all of that about the Tomb Kings. I was just like, damn. When I saw them in the trailer with a giant skeleton walking out of the sandstorm and shooting lasers out of his eyes, I was like, bro, Tomb Kings is their favorite faction.
I deeply enjoyed your reaction to the laser beam eyes from the Hyra Titan.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, how could it not? And I was so sad when I learned that in AOS they're not there.
Celestial Monkey Dragon, Zhao Ming.
Well,
yeah.
I guess they kind of
Zhao Ming
had their
would be the
other
answer.
thing with the Bone Reaper Cyrix or whatever they were called. I haven't done a video on them yet, actually. But, man, that's just unfortunate.
Oh, yeah, all the Sphinxes and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just gone. But anyways, I mean, we got the old world back or whatever.
There's one particular note that always made me laugh about Ramhotep where, like, there's a famous battle that happened, like, relatively recently in the timeline before, like, in, like, the quote-unquote modern era, where there was a battle where an Empire army was down in Hekara and they had a steam tank with them, and during the battle, the steam tank, like, rams this terracotta wall that Ramhotep personally built, and he sees it, and he basically, like, swears that if it takes him 10,000 years, he's gonna track down that particular steam tank in the city it comes from. He's gonna murder everyone there, and he's gonna use their bones to rebuild the part of the wall they broke.
Oh my god!
Like, Ramhotep's fucking
this
hilarious.
Man is he's salty.
Like, I want him as a legendary lord so bad because he's so funny.
Oh wait, he's not in the game?
No, not yet. But he's like
damn.
like their last big general character missing. Because if you did Tomb Kings, you get Ramhotep the Visionary as your legendary lord. Then you'd get Prince Apophis as a legendary hero, which Prince Apophis is the Scarab Prince. And he's literally like a Tomb King ghost that's made out of flesh-eating scarabs.
Oh,
so he's just a big swarm
disgusting.
of scarabs that's in the vague shape of a man. And he's impossible to kill because if you attack him, he just blows up into a bunch of bugs.
It's just a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, that reform and then will eat you alive. He's a nasty piece of work. And then
I mean, that's such a cool concept.
Yeah, and then we'd get probably the Kimric Titan, which the Kimric Titan is like a giant construct in the shape of a scarab that has a lot of really cool abilities. And then maybe like Ushabti with great weapons would be nice. Tomb Guard on chariots would be cool. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else missing from the actual. For a new lord, we get the High Lich Priest, so they get their caster lords, which they desperately need. So get the High Lich Priest, and then for the hero, get the Tomb Heralds, which should be banner bearers who are like really focused around just lots of buff abilities. So have like a lot of really fun buff powers, and then I don't know, you could throw in some random additional thing that I'm sure I could come up with something if I had to, but I'm not going to bother.
There's plenty of lore in there, yeah. Just pick out a unit, add into the DLC.
Yeah, but yeah, you could, so like Tomb Kings could get like a nice little Lord pack size thing where you get like Legendary Lord, Legendary Hero, Generic Lord, Generic Hero, and like 3 to 5 units, and you're done. And I would consider them like done. Like they're done forever. Good job.
Alright. Well, actually, I feel like I've heard talk about some factions that are still kind of just missing from the game. If they were to add a faction that they haven't put into the game yet, which one do you think they should work on, or do you think they should add in anymore?
Oh yeah, there's like 5 that I still want.
Dang, there's that many.
The one that has the most material that they could directly pull from and make like a good playable faction out of are called the Dogs of War. And the Dogs of War, they were kind of a mercenary faction.
Oh wait, the Dogs of War. That's near where Ikit Claw is, right? Those guys?
Yeah. So the Dogs of War book was a bit of a mess in that half of the book was like famous mercenary regiments from just all over the world, but the other half of the book was dedicated to Talea, which are like Warhammer's version of Italy. Making the Dogs of War the Talaean faction, I think, would be good. Now, granted, you could make it where they're just Talea, or you could make it where they're like a combination of Talea, Estalia, and Araby, where Araby is the Arabian Peninsula, the humans that live there, and Estalia is Warhammer Fantasy's version of Spain. Which those factions have a lot of similarities. And if you combined all of them together, you could make a really nice, healthy, full roster with like all sorts of different elite units and monsters and all this other stuff. Alternatively, they could just separate them into their own things. But like, just off the top of my head, I want Araby super duper badly. I want the Dogs of War for Talea. The Kingdoms of End, which the Kingdoms of End are a huge one, which that's Warhammer's version of India, which on Immortal Empires, it's on there, but you can't go into it. Like you're not able, it's a permanent Fog of War area that you can't go into right now, because they haven't opened up that part of the map yet. And that's, I see. We don't know a lot about them. Like there's very, very, very little lore on them, which would make it extra exciting for them to get added to the game. Like the only big thing we know about them is that their nation is known as the Land of 1,000 Gods, because there's supposed to be like a shit ton of gods there. And they have, it's a mostly human nation, but one of the groups of creatures that's super duper famous that lives there are the Tigermen of End, which the Tigermen are, they're exactly what they sound like. They are humanoid tigers that are very, very beefy and very, very fucking scary. And then there's Koresh, which is the Warhammer Fantasy version of Southeast Asia. So it kind of combines a lot of concepts.
Oh yeah.
From like a
Southeast Asia represent.
Yeah, and the Naga of Koresh are snakemen that pull from a lot of like really fascinating concepts, and we know little snippets about them. Like we know they're led by queens that are known as the Blood Naga Queens, and that they have access to some really powerful sorceries. Some books say they're chaos worshippers, but their version of chaos would probably be a little different from what we see in the north. And they live in the jungles, and they're apparently scary as fuck. And we know they have the ability to create giant monsters. We don't know how they use like some form of like biomancy or flesh molding or something, because they create this giant. They make a. I can actually send you a picture of one of the. So, relatively recent lore updated that a creature that had existed a little bit before was created by them, according to some newish lore we got. So this big fucker, which people in chat can look it up, this is called the Dreadmaw, which is a giant snake.
Oh my god.
It's a giant snake monster that spits corrosive acid that can melt like steel. And it can open its jaws really wide to swallow even something as big as an ogre completely whole. And it's really fucking scary. And apparently the Naga of Koresh created it and like purposely sent it out into the Darklands to prevent people from coming to Koresh, because they do not like outsiders.
I see.
Then there's like the lands of Nippon, which you probably can guess what Nippon is. Because Games Workshop tried really hard with that one.
Yeah, but Nippon, from what I know, it just has like a few lines of lore, like, oh, they train Clan Eshin, and that's it.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. So most modern lore suggests more that Eshin got most of its stuff from Cathay, but there's some snippets that disagree and say they got it from like Cathay and Nippon. But yeah, Nippon, it's literally just Japan. it's just Japan. But there's been a lot of really interesting ideas thrown around about what could be there, especially because there is some evidence that suggests that one of the 9 dragon children of Cathay may have fled to Nippon for some reason, which would be like a super exciting development.
Oh wait, there's 9? Okay.
Yeah, so there are 9 dragon children, but there's only 5 still around. So 4 of them have been lost or killed or vanished. And then there's the Fishmen, who I am a personal champion of. The Fishmen are a race that are referred to in a shit ton of Warhammer Fantasy literature, but have never had an official race.
Really?
But they are like a absolutely fucking terrifying race of an underwater empire of troglodyte, pale, needle-fanged fish people that come up and attack people on ships and stuff and take people down into the depths for unknown purposes. Which I've had a lot of theory crafting on what they could be, because I think Warhammer tends to be at its best when you take a fantasy trope and you take a lot of historical mythologies and cultures and concepts and kind of mix it together in like a big pot, and come up with something really cool. And I'd love to do that as well for them, because like there's a lot of really cool like monsters and mythologies and concepts and like Polynesian mythology that I think would work really, really well for that. Like if you go watch like fucking Moana, you see like little snippets of like some of the creatures and the monsters they talk about and go, that'd be pretty scary if you Warhammerified that. Warhammer literally just takes those concepts and makes them fightier.
For sure. Yeah, I mean that's also kind of just the appeal of Warhammer. Yeah. Yeah,
and then the last race that's really, really famous is the Hobgoblin Khanate, which the Hobgoblin Khanate is north of Cathay. They hang out in the Eastern Steppes, and they're very heavily inspired by the Mongolian hordes of Attila the Hun. But they're hobgoblins, but they have a lot of wolf riders, and they have entire mobile cities. So they have like these giant caravans that are pulled by like dozens of giant wolves, and these caravans have like war machines and giant tents on them and stuff. So they're a completely mobile culture. They don't have any like stationary cities. All of their cities are mobile. That's so cool. And it's like, God, I want them. They'd be so fun.
Just with this one question that I asked, I learned so much. There's so much that I don't know about the Warhammer lore. I thought I had a pretty good grasp of it, but I guess I really did just scratch the surface.
Well, those are all considered kind of like deep cut things, because they're not even in the game, and a lot of people don't know about them.
I guess they're not like the most popular out there, but yeah, the lore itself does reference them, and they are there as a part of the world. It helps when
you've got like by the time Warhammer Fantasy stopped really receiving support, it was about 35 years old. So like it's been around for like that's a long time, especially when you consider that it's been constantly built on. It's not like Lord of the Rings where Tolkien wrote it, the end, right? It's that constant, like dozens and dozens and dozens of authors have added onto it over and over and over and over and over and over and over for all these decades, which also means that it's a clusterfuck. But
for sure, we know this.
So many retcons, but in like so much lore that just doesn't agree with itself. But that's also what makes it fun, is that you can just take the bits you like. But
yeah. I feel like that's just something that a lot of the Warhammer fans kind of have to get used to. Like, if retcon happens, that's just, been there, done that.
Well, it's like Warhammer Fantasy, like, we've been through the apocalypse, man. Like, we've seen it. We literally watched the setting blow up, and now it's back. Like, whatever.
Hey, as long as we're enjoying ourselves, like, who cares? I guess.
You make the best of what you can.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Alright. Everybody wants me to ask so many different things. I feel like the campaign is basically dead here, though. We can probably try out.
Yeah, I will mess around with that other thing that some people in the chat were telling me about, to see if that actually works, because they claim that it allows them to play with their international friends, and it works really well. So I will investigate that. Which, by the way, whoever that was in chat, if you'd be so kind as to send me that on Discord so I can remember what it is, that'd be great.
For sure.
I know it's somewhere in the YouTube chat, but there's a lot of comments in that chat.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't go back through that. There's so many people watching. But I guess yeah, we could test that out before next time if we ever want to do another one.
Hell
For
yeah,
now
brother.
though, this is the
Yeah, and like worst
Yeah,
case scenario,
I had a
we could always pivot to like a similar game. Like maybe we could play Tabletop Sim, or we could do like Vermintide, or one of those other games that has
Oh
like
yeah, for
actual
sure,
dedicated servers.
Definitely, 100%. Honestly, I just enjoyed just listening to all this lore that I had no idea about. Today
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
fun
feels
to
like
chat.
the very first day when I learned about Warhammer, and I was just mind blown at the fact that, you know, that there was this massive universe. I was like so many different races interacting with each other. It was just so many different flavors. It was so cool. And I had gotten, I guess, a bit stagnant on it because I felt like I had a good grasp on everything, and now I feel like I just don't know anything anymore.
It's a horrifically bottomless pit, but it, like, you know, in a good way. Like, if you want to keep going down, there's always
Hey.
further down to go.
I went down the VTuber rabbit hole. I can find another rabbit hole to
Dude,
go down.
fucking
I'm used
tell
to
me
rabbit
about
hole
it.
things.
Oh my god, I hate how much of my feed is dedicated to VTuber stuff sometimes, because like a big thing will happen in the Warhammer sphere, and I won't even hear about it for like another 3 days because there's too much VTuber shit that's blocking my feed for me to hear about something important happening.
One of us.
It's like someone's gonna message me on Discord and be like, "Did you see that CA put out like a patch?" And I'm like, "Oh,
No.
no, I didn't. Sorry, I was too busy looking at one of Pipkin Pippa's unhinged rants again. My bad."
Yo, base Pippa watcher, let's go. But yeah. If we can, well, let's definitely do this again, my dude.
Hell yeah.
Had a lot of fun.
But yeah, I think that is about our time, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I mean, I could go for more, but we should probably at least have some gameplay going.
Yeah,
I hate the fact that I can't let my chat like see anything. It's just a podcast now at this point.
we'll do a part 2 and do something a little more interactive. But yeah, this was fun. I
Yeah,
had a
for
good time.
sure. Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah. Goodbye to everybody in Sotek's chat. Bye-bye.
Yep. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna mute myself on Discord and deal with them, and then I'll come.
Roger
I'll
that.
talk to you after.
I'll do as well. Later.
All right, chat. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Hopefully that was like just kind of a fun little bonus thing. I am going to try my damnedest to do more co-op campaigns and streams and stuff with other people. Obviously, we kind of have to figure out the best way to do it. It's going to require some finagling here and there. But yeah, I hope you all had fun. If you haven't, please make sure to go check out Mr. Xero over on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel with the buddies in his little group. The God damn it, my brain is short circuiting. I should know what they're called. I've looked at it like 1,000 goddamn. Hold on. The Legit Weebs. Thank you. The Legit Weebs YouTube channel. Please make sure to go check them out. Subscribe. He's got a lot of really fun Warhammer Fantasy reaction videos up, so you can see like him experiencing a lot of the trailers and stuff for the first time, and it's fucking awesome. So hope you all had a lovely day. I am exhausted because I did not get much sleep last night, so I'm gonna go take a nap. But I hope you all have a great day. You know, go find something fun to watch. I'm not gonna bother with any raids or anything because I'm so tired. So love your faces, appreciate the support. Make sure to please go say hi to Xero and give him some love. And I'll see you guys when I see you. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Also, Drew Sapper, in answer to your question, does Estalia have a relationship with Japan, kind of like Portugal and Japan in our world's history? Probably. I would say that's a very safe assumption, but there's not much lore on either Estalia or Nippon, and none to my knowledge of the two actively talking, but that seems very, very likely. Sorry for not answering that till now. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.